Well, Charles, I am at my wit's end with these technical issues here. There are multiple simultaneous failures that we are experiencing, and it's very, very frustrating. I am extremely sorry to our viewers and to you. There is a problem right now that is defying explanation on... I'm sorry, Charles.
That's all right.
We're live. Welcome to Sunday. Let me work on getting these cameras up here. I have been back and forth with the company that makes the software, and they have not been able to provide a satisfactory solution, but I assure you we will get past it. How are you today, Charles?
I'm great. I'm great.
It's great to see you. Okay,
Likewise.
there we go. One of them. Here we go. Okay. Hello, Charles. Welcome to Sunday.
Hello, Jason.
I tried to have a nice opening for us, and there's the most upsetting problem is happening with Patreon. And I want to thank all of our generous sponsors on Patreon and apologize that this is happening. I don't know why it would be.
Well, can our viewers see the wonderful poster, or is that?
Yes, people can see that right now, but not our people on Patreon. They're seeing a dumb image of me, which is this. They've made a change to Vimeo, they've made an update to iOS, and they've made an update to the Switcher software, and all of these things are conspiring to make an extremely challenging troubleshooting environment and also to screw up what it is that we're trying to do here. So,
Should we take a quick pause, do you think?
No. We should.
Barrel on?
Yes, you go and I'll work on trying to get this sorted out.
So while we work on the production gremlins, I think we should congratulate the art department yet again. I mean,
Thank
today
you.
I hope that the former president is wallowing in slime out there in Little Rock on the occasion of his 72nd birthday, but it is, I believe, indeed his 72nd birthday today. And this is a wonderful job by the art department. For those of you who can't guess, it might be a mock-up or a parody of our current president's epic bestseller, Trump, The Art of the Deal. And here we see Slick Willie in his party hat, appropriately mostly pink, and with one of those, what do you call those things?
I Googled party whistle to find that.
Party whistle. And the one thing I would note, there's been a lot of chatter about two major things. One thing people talk a lot about is the size of Donald Trump's hands. And indeed, those are, I believe, Donald Trump's hands.
Yes,
and
indeed.
Bill Clinton's fetid head.
Yes.
Not doing well, Bill is. I mean, Donald's hands look young, actually, there.
Well, the book is from a few years ago, no?
Yeah, but Bill Clinton's face, my goodness. I mean, he's stolen enough money now to afford a plastic surgeon. I mean, I would think he'd go through and tighten that face up a little bit.
Well, I think he spent all his money on heart surgery, if I'm not mistaken, Charles.
A couple of them.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing.
And as you noted, this apparently is pulled up. This isn't fake news, though it's attributed to the New York Times.
Correct.
This is, I don't know what year this book came out in. I want to say in the 80s, late 80s or early 90s.
Got to be the last time the New York Times had anything positive to say about Donald Trump, but yeah. I felt it was appropriate for today.
Yeah, it really is. Trump makes one believe for a moment in the American dream again. I mean, that's quite pathetic coming out of the failing New York Times.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still working to set it up so our viewers on Patreon can see what we're doing here. I'm so sorry, Charles, because some of these problems, they don't begin until I hit the go button, and that's extremely frustrating. Okay, now at least people on Patreon can see what we're doing, and I do have to thank our viewers on patreon.com. Crowdsource the Truth. It's so important that people are sponsoring the show on Patreon because, you know, we've come under attack in the past here on YouTube, and there are people out there in the world who have become very skilled at manipulating social media networks like YouTube. And we don't want to play to their strengths. We want to make sure that viewers decide what they get to see. People don't seem to realize that when they're watching things for free or when they're sending out tweets for free, what they're giving up in exchange is the ability to not have a giant corporate concern edit what they want you to see, like in the case of Alex Jones. Even if you dislike Alex Jones, I would think most people object to Twitter and Google and Facebook being able to decide that they are no longer allowed to watch Alex Jones. So hopefully people continue sponsoring. And you know, we had a great show last night with Quinn Michaels on patreon.com, where we revealed all kinds of stunning information about facts and details leaked in the book My Friend Mr. Leaky, and also anomalies in the evidence related to the recent death of Jenny Moore, the investigative journalist who was working on a piece that concerned a young man who alleges to have been sexually assaulted by Bill Clinton when he was underage. So we'll keep our eyes out for that interview, which will hopefully surface. But enough of my shenanigans, Charles. I really apologize for that delay in getting started.
No problem.
Perhaps we should dive right into the slides.
Sure. We're following the practice that we've pioneered, I think, and now this is our 97th show, I believe.
Amazing.
Together. And on average, I think they run about 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really going on here, I think the wider world has woken up to the fact the mainstream media may not want to get it because they're part of the problem, but the wider world has woken up to the idea that Slick Willie and his extended, in quotes, family have basically been operating this Clinton Foundation and the affiliated entities as Robin Hood in reverse. They've been stealing from the poor to enrich themselves and the cronies. And this has been going on for 21 years. I mean, that's, I remember when my children were little babies, and a baby becomes legally of age 21 years later. And the transition from baby to 21 is a big, long, expensive, arduous transition for the benefit, for the better, generally speaking, except when you speak about the Clinton Foundation fraud complex. I mean, it'd be one thing to say, well, you know, the first tax return was an error, and you know, little things happen, bygones by bygone. This has been going on for 21 years. And what we see is that the authorities, Republicans, Democrats, independents, the nonpartisan line people in the IRS, and the people around the world, the state governments, they don't want to do anything. Or they don't seem to be doing things fast enough. So this is a moment, I think, where Crowdsource the Truth viewers can make an enormous difference. At last count, I guess we're up to what, 65,000 viewers or so?
Yeah.
Subscribers?
Yeah, on YouTube alone.
On YouTube alone, it's probably many more than that, counting Periscope and Facebook and other networks. And the difference with our group, I'm seeing it in the quality of my emails and contacts from different crowdsourcers. These are engaged people, and thank you to those of you who've been helping out the way you have been helping out. These are smart people, engaged people, patriots of this country and other countries who are sick and tired of this unregulated globalist corruption and want to see something done about it. And so what we've set up for you, the crowd, and for the governments, we are herding these sick cats towards a cliff. And that cliff is November 15th, 2018.
Remind us why that is, Charles. What's happening November 5th, 2018?
November 15th. That is the final filing deadline for any charity that operates on a calendar year end. And so beyond that date, you can't file a tax return. If you fail to file a tax return, you're in deep trouble. And what we have done in the most recent show, where we alerted people to the fact of gigantic material diversions, that is to say, hundreds of millions of dollars being raised, solicited, and then actually collected and devoted for purposes for which the Clinton Foundation is not authorized. That is a serious crime in many states and foreign countries. And we have made the wider world aware of this. We're now, with this broadcast, going to be making accounting firms and legal firms aware of it. But more to the point, we are making private foundation donors, U.S. private foundation donors who have given money to this collection of frauds, aware of the fact that their donations are what are called taxable expenditures. When a private foundation sends money, tells the IRS, look, we're responsible for making sure when we make donations, doing due diligence, we're going to send our money only to public charities that are fairly described as being public charities. And when you send hundreds of millions, billions of dollars towards a collection of frauds over 21 years, you are in serious trouble the second the IRS wakes up and decides to do something about it. So that you in the crowd, we in the crowd, have the ability to reach out and touch the IRS via Twitter, via email, to touch the House of Representatives, the state governments, the state attorney generals, the senators, the executive branch, foreign governments, and say, hang on, you guys have had an excuse under the Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, 24 years of corruption. You've had your excuse or whatever it is in math, I forget, it's 28 years, I guess, to do this kind of stuff. Now there's a new administration. Yes, it's tough to pull these people out who are hiding in the swamp inside the IRS and the Department of Justice. They're still trying to obstruct this process. But you in the crowd can make a difference by raising your voices, by going out to your friends and say, watch this video. Watch this collection of 97 videos if you have the time. And don't take it anymore. This process is costing we the people and taxpayers around the world billions and billions of lost tax revenue. It's costing us tens of billions in corruption.
Yeah.
It's costing us in our national reputation. The charity sector in this country, by and large, is filled with caring people who give of themselves. We're not trying to get rich the way the Clintons did, going from near bankruptcy to being worth over $100 million, operating charities.
Well done.
That's not the way the bulk of people operate in this country, and we don't have to sit down and take it anymore. So this broadcast is going to be slightly different. We're going to go to the next slide, Jason, if it's okay.
Yep.
And remind people around the world, particularly our new subscribers and viewers, that we have a First Amendment right. It's a valuable right. I would encourage, and I think, Jason, you would encourage, politicians in countries like Sweden and England and France and other countries that don't really have the kind of First Amendment protection that we need to ensure that people express their views openly to the wider public. If they're wrong, they can be corrected. But people shouldn't be afraid to express their views the way they are in so many different countries. It's out of open expression of views that discussion happens, that scientific advances happen, other types of advances happen. And what we do in these broadcasts is we spend a lot of time studying this area of charity fraud and the Clintons, corruption, etc. So we have tremendous links available and evidence available that we share on all these broadcasts. You're free to look at all that. These are free broadcasts. We're not trying to make money off this particular broadcast. We're trying to encourage you in the crowd to stand up, demand your rights, and demand that these crooks be brought to account. We have a witch hunt operated by Ferris Muller
Right.
and his merry band of Democratic, anti-Trump hating, partisan thugs, frankly, and hacks. Yeah. They're landing on Donald Trump, and it'll be high time once we get past the resolution of this to go back over how the Mueller witch hunt got started, who's responsible for that, whether the very triggering of that witch hunt was illegal to begin with. But we haven't yet seen the type of required time and attention go into examining the truth about these Clinton frauds and the donors who've been happy to send money to these frauds for almost 21 years.
Yep.
So maybe what we should do, Jason, here you can reach out to Jason on Twitter and to me on Twitter as well, to my website, and if you can figure out how to contact me on the website, which actually I haven't tried to do it recently, but I know it's possible because people are contacting me via the website. Right. I do my best to respond promptly. And what we have here is this playlist of, I guess this is the 97th video.
Yes, and let me
And
just bring that to everyone's attention. The playlist was being very disagreeable. It's astonishing the array of technical problems that we're being hit with constantly, but the playlist, Charles, is a convenient repository that everybody can use if you've missed any of the... Now, was this Sunday with Charles, or no?
That was Close Again.
Oh yeah, right. No. I see. That's the title of the playlist there, but here we go. Yes, Charles Ortell is closing in. So all of the episodes, whether they be the Wednesday show where you close in or the Sunday show, are listed here. We're rocketing towards our centennial, Charles.
That's true. That's true.
I wonder if we'll have a special episode in consideration of that.
Yeah, we definitely should do that.
May well do that.
But this is, we've been following a formula that seems to be working. Typical Crowdsource the Truth, either Sunday with Charles or Closing In, tends to get around 10,000 views within 24 hours just on YouTube.
I think that number is somehow choked off, because we used to get 20, 30, even 60,000 views.
Well, I think, but 10, I think we would get 60, not necessarily in 24 hours. I'm talking about in 24 hours.
Right.
And that is respectable for a show of this length.
Right.
I've looked at other YouTube clips that people have that are much shorter, 8-10 minutes, and they've struggled to get to 10,000 in 24 hours.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, you're very popular, Charles. I think people enjoy hearing your points of view and interacting with you. As you said, you are on Twitter at Charles Ortell, and I believe there's a link to charlesortell.com somewhere on here. No? Maybe not.
No,
but
I don't
people
think so.
can just easily go there, and we'll work on maybe consolidating some of the social media presence for you so that people can email you more easily or do whatever they might like to do. We do get a lot of good input, as you said, from the crowd, including that Ferris Mueller.
That was a great suggestion. We
He
might have
needs
to
be
shamelessly
given a day off.
How about a life off?
Something. Okay, so
So without
yes,
any further
back to
ado,
the
maybe we
slides.
dive back into the next slide.
Indeed.
So this actually, next slide, is the fruit of it. We're following a suggestion. Somebody thought it would be a good idea to put one slide up that in around 15 minutes or so would give the viewer some important takeaways of what we're going to talk about in this presentation today. Now, we've got some very interesting details to share after these slides, but overall, the one thing that should be coming away from those of you who've been watching this series of now 97 videos is that the laws around the world have been tightened up to make it very tough for corporations and individuals and investment firms to engage in money laundering. On the other hand, the one area of the law that has not been tightened up yet is the laws pertaining to charities, because so many countries around the world, the majority of countries in this on the planet are actually poor and would love to get money from charities. So countries that want to welcome charities tend to have very lenient laws. And if you have one country that has lenient laws, that allows crooks to use that weak link as the way to route money around the world. So how do you use a charity, a U.S. charity, internationally to launder money? The fact is that we've encountered this firsthand, that even big states like New York and California don't have the staffs to police charities that may be based in New York and California but are operating, let's say, in India or Africa or pick a place, even Europe. They don't have the ability to have trained accountants to study these forms, to understand the vagaries of international charities. U.S. charities operating internationally are supposed to have, show the public the books and records of each operation internationally in that foreign currency and show you the exchange rates that are used to translate the books of every subsidiary back into the parent. Now, did the Clinton Foundation bother to do that? Of course not. Slick Willie rolls the way he wants to roll. So if you know that the various state governments are not up to the task, if you know that you've placed Lois Lerner, perhaps, into the key role in the IRS which would decide, alongside Rod Rosenstein for a time, who gets prosecuted, who doesn't get prosecuted for fraud, then you know that even if you do break the rules and even if you are caught, the likelihood that prosecutorial discretion would be exercised to go after you is very, very low. So this whole area of U.S. charities, Mr. President, I hope you're listening, House of Representatives, and the Senate, I hope you're listening carefully. The whole area of U.S. charities choosing to operate internationally needs to have a much tighter regime in place, a special department within the IRS of trained forensic accountants who know the warning signs to look for and relentlessly pursue to make examples of charities that might, say, purposefully not have a real board of directors that's independent.
Who would do that, Charles?
I don't know, the Clinton Foundation and every single one of its affiliates and subsidiaries. Purposefully make sure that your trustees are all political hacks beholden to you, looking to make sure that the Clinton machine continues at some point in power as in the presidency of the United States of America. And further, this type of prototypical U.S. international charity fraud vehicle makes sure that they hire the dumbest, most gullible, most corrupt accountants in the world. And I'm thinking here of notorious BAD, otherwise known as BKD LLP, which for some reason, worked with this Clinton Foundation crime network continuously from about 1998 until sometime in 2012, and even as recently as 2016 or so, when they attempted incorrect and failed to restate their financial statements. I mean, so you pick corrupt trustees who are willing to do the bidding. You make sure that the accounting firm is not going to do its job. You make sure that you hire lawyers who are all beholden and are going to do their best to protect you. And then you obstruct the process of investigating this fraud using your network of people that you've placed inside the Treasury, you've placed inside the IRS, you've placed inside Justice, and you've placed around the world. When you do all that, what you can do is you can then say to your friends, hey, look, if you want to have your income taxes reduced in the U.S., send me $1 million and I'll give you a receipt for $5 million. Nobody will check it. You can then deduct $5 million on your tax return. Equally, another trick you could do is you could say, international dude, send me money to this address in the U.S., but it's not the real charity address. And you could take a deduction on your tax return in your foreign country subject to your laws, and guess what we'll do for you? For a modest fee, we will then reroute that money back to the Cayman Islands, back to a place where you can get on your plane, your corporate jet, and pick the cash up at a compliant bank, so you're not even out of cash.
Wow.
So when you have this type of loose controls, this screams out for attention. Now there's one bad reason why it may not be getting the kind of attention it needs. Because who needs a crooked money laundering vehicle to launder dark money?
Criminals?
17 national security agencies that want to route money around the world, would be very happy to have
without asking Congress?
Without asking Congress, might be very happy to have something like this. So, this is something that if Donald Trump is serious about draining the swamp, Donald Trump and his team, and you, the crowd, need to encourage and give the president and his team fortitude, need to stand up and say enough of this bullshit, frankly, sorry to curse, but it is bullshit, of allowing these U.S. charities to swan around the world in the name of a president of the United States and to be engaged in naked money laundering and bold-faced corruption right in the public eye. Meanwhile, as Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton fly around the world acting as if they're holier than thou and better than all of us for their service in this international network of fraud.
Charles, if I had to guess, I would say that naked money laundering would be Bill Clinton's favorite kind.
Yeah, that's where I'm sure it's done at Epstein Island and many other places.
Exactly. Well, sorry.
So the second point here, the overarching point I would make, is that the Clinton Presidential Foundation, it was technically called the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, has never gotten the required authority from the IRS to operate internationally. It never has, and at this point it never will. So all of these transactions that the Clinton Foundation has entered into with all these bank accounts around the world If the FBI has not already gotten a detailed list together, starting in 1997, October 23rd, 1997, of every single bank account that has been opened up in every single state in the United States, in Washington, D.C., in every single country around the world, with every single address and phone number and signatory, then the FBI, we stop our work right now and ask, what have you guys and ladies done already? If you have not done that job, what?
Pencils
down. If you didn't do that job a long time ago, and what work was done in that regard when Bob Mueller and James Comey and Rod Rosenstein from 2001 to 2005 were investigating, in theory, this Clinton Foundation. Let's see that work. And the reason that's so important, the form used to be called, for a foreign bank account, it used to be called an FBAR form, F-B-A-R, and you have to fill the form out for every single bank account that this Clinton Foundation, every entity, had in a foreign country. And it's really, the form is a serious form. Whether they took it seriously is another question. Knowing that Lois Lerner was in the IRS, they probably said, F this, we're not going to fill out the FBAR form. But,
why is it called the FBAR form? That
that's
sounds very much like FUBAR.
It should be. Well,
which is a military contraction.
Right. Yeah, I know. But that's also an apt description of their disclosures. But that's an easy place to look. When did you fill out the forms? One point I will make right now, and I'm betting dollars to donuts, they never declared their Canadian bank accounts. And they don't say they have Canadian bank accounts in the Clinton Foundation filings, even though they were responsible for operating one, and then it changed its name, but it's the same thing, charity up in Canada, the Justra entity. So it's just obvious that these people have either been given a pardon, or given a waiver, or given forbearance, or whatever to operate.
Unofficial pardon, you mean?
Unofficial.
Yeah.
And what I would like to do, Jason, if you can, we've put this up before, but Representative Blackburn, who's in a tough fight for the Senate in Tennessee, is the only congressperson who, when it mattered, stood up and gave a damn about this. This is something that her staff put together by September of 2016. It is a phenomenal report, filled with sources, takes you through a whole bunch of these problems. This came out, as I say, several months before the election. And
people can get this in the links from your presentation.
Right. And we put it up before, but I mean, it's a lengthy report. I don't know how many pages it is, but you see all the footnotes and everything. This should be mandatory reading. And if you, in the crowd, have somebody who's saying, well, there are no details here, Charles is just yakking away, nobody cares about this. Baloney. Read this report. This came out September of 2016. What have you been doing, under the Trump administration about the allegations in this report? There's a pathway. Did anyone go talk to Marsha Blackburn's staff about this? Okay, so the Clinton Presidential Foundation is supposed to be full stop, and we're going to show you categorically in a lay-down hand, full stop, an operation based only on the muddy waters of the Arkansas River, Little Rock, Arkansas. That's where they were supposed to operate, and nowhere else. Not in New York, not in Boston, not in Chicago, not in California, only in Little Rock, Arkansas. And all they were supposed to do was look after the historical papers, the presidential records that bill, all of the presidential records. We don't even know if they're there, but all of the presidential records that haven't yet been spindled, mutilated, stolen, bleach bit, or diverted, they're all supposed to be there. Those are our records.
That and a strip club.
So, the third major takeaway here, and I alluded to it, is that Messrs. Comey, Mueller, and Rosenstein, the three stooges, they have known about this, or they should have known about this fraud, beginning when an investigation was mounted in February of 2001. And again, maybe for our new viewers who haven't seen this before, Jason, you can hit that link, the second link right there. Yeah. Here's a link. This is official, the FBI vault. We've been over this before in previous presentations. The most recent edition, part 3 of 3, shows that Hillary Clinton was under investigation for public corruption in the first several months of her official elective role as a senator. She was implicated in this investigation. They've done their level best to take her name out of these notes. But Hillary Clinton has been under investigation as an elected official, as an aspiring public official, since February of 2001. You know, and you can look at this at your leisure. There's a lot of details in
it's
here.
the New York FBI.
Exactly. This was Mary Jo White initially, and then dopey James Comey took over in December of 2001. Judge Janine had a wonderful episode last night where she described Mueller as being, you know, a cleaner. He's the person, you know, like the mob would send in when there's a crime scene,
Right.
you send in a cleaner. That's what Mueller is.
Yeah.
You know, Mueller and Comey and Rosenstein, they sure look to me as people, they're not interested in actually getting to the bottom of rooting out corruption. No, they need to make sure, it would seem, they have conflicted motives here. Any fair-minded review, and I challenge the FBI, and I challenge Donald Trump to make public these 17-year-old files, okay? Make them all public.
Oh, you're saying
The
unredacted.
whole, unredacted, make the whole file public, you know, and let's see exactly what Robert Mueller, when he got there by September 4th, 2001, James Comey by December, but earlier on, Rod Rosenstein, early in 2001, was in the Department of Justice. He had purview over which tax frauds got prosecuted. How come they didn't make this slam dunk case in February of 2001? By February 2001, the Clinton Foundation had never had an independent audit. No external party to this thing truly knows how much money went towards and passed through this slush fund, this cesspool, this swamp. And yet, the investigation went on for 4 hapless years. It's an entire presidency. And they couldn't see this obvious fraud, and yet it escalated and escalated to the massive disgrace that it is today. So if we go back into the slides, not that I have any strong views about this.
Charles, just real quickly, people on Periscope are asking where they can find these links. Unfortunately, Periscope doesn't let me put anything in there, so it's in the description, the video description on YouTube, on Facebook, and on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. That's where people can access all of your presentations and download all of this stuff.
Right, exactly. And we put this all up there for free.
Yes.
And on purpose. We're trying, please, people, post these presentations. Please, if you like them, put them up on Twitter and Facebook and elsewhere, and circulate them. Circulate them to your email list. Circulate them to people you consider to be thought leaders and referencers, and ask them, what the hell are you doing about this? You know, the fourth point, the fourth major takeaway is, you know, sometimes when you get into the minutia of laws and regulations, it's easy to lose sight of the forest for the trees. The most important thing when you think about all these fine details is that tax deductions and tax favored treatment are not available to people. They're available only to straight up formal organizations. To be an organization, you have to be a corporation, in the case of a charity, a corporation, an association, or a trust. You can't just be Jason and Charles putting on 97 videos without a corporate structure. You have to have an actual nonprofit corporation that actually has to be incorporated lawfully in a state or in Washington, D.C. It has to be, if it's going to be a U.S. charity, incorporated first in the United States. You have to have the formalities dealt with. The trustees or the directors have to be empowered. They can't have unbelievable defects in their record, like having been impeached but not convicted, or having to surrender their law license for lying under oath or obstructing justice. That's not the kind of person you normally want to put on the board of your foundation, because when you do that, to register to solicit properly across the United States, you have to explain those defects in every jurisdiction. So members of the public can say, you know, I probably don't want to give money to an organization where one of them that's named after a dude that was impeached, had to surrender his law license, and was implicated in lying under oath more than once.
Most people don't seem to mind that.
Yeah, well, they don't seem to mind that because they figure if they give it to this Clinton Foundation, and Hillary gets to be president of the United States, then party on,
so
dude.
Good.
Party
Yeah.
on. So this is not an organization. It is certainly not an independent entity. Everybody in this thing is beholden to the Clinton family. And from and after November 2nd, 2013, the parent Clinton Foundation, and by extension every subsidiary, every affiliate, was explicitly controlled only by members of the Clinton Foundation in gross violation of applicable law. So it's not an organization, it's not independent, and it's certainly not nonpartisan. This is the Clinton needs wing, the corruption wing of the Demon Rat Party. I mean, this is the swamp incarnate, and this is one of the reasons I believe Hillary Clinton said. What did she say, Jason? She was quoted as saying, we've got to win, otherwise.
What difference does it make?
No, that she said, but no, she said, if that happens, we're all
they'll
dead.
Hang us or
they'll
something?
all hang us. I think she understood, and I think the Obama administration understood, that if Hillary Clinton lost, then
they got big trouble.
They're in the ninth circle of hell. If
that's why we're seeing all this with the Russia collusion and the Mueller. I mean, it really smacks of desperation, everything that they're doing.
Right.
And I think that they're running out of time. If this Manafort trial gets thrown out, as it looks like it's going to, and if Paul Manafort is absolved of crimes and takes civil action against the U.S. government for wrongful imprisonment, Robert Mueller.
Il Tostino.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the fifth major takeaway here is, and we've begun this process, I'm going to put, is a very limited collection of charity law and accountant charity experts in the United States of America. And we have begun the process, which is going to accentuate as we drive towards this November 15th, 2018 deadline, of driving all of you into a place where you could choose between helping the Clintons and spending the rest of your lives in prison and maybe having Arthur Andersen happen to you,
Right.
going out of existence as an accounting firm, or having law firms have gone out of existence for being standing at the center of a racketeering and corrupt enterprise, criminal conspiracy, and even for less than that. And that's where you all are, accountants and law firms who've done work in the past for the Clintons. Your work is known. In the case of accounting firms, your working papers are going to be accessible in lawsuits and in criminal actions.
Well,
so
I have a question. Actually, I have a question and a suggestion. So you're saying there's a limited collection of accountants who...
There's only a few accounting firms left, major accounting firms left, right?
We should make like a Franklin Mint or Tell limited collection, little pewter accountants that people could paint at home. But also, like that Arthur Andersen thing. Like I thought about that. When that happened, okay, Arthur Andersen went out of business, but there's like thousands of people there who were just like, oh, let me go work for Ernst & Young or something. It's the same criminal people, just at different companies, isn't it?
Well, you see, that's where Donald Trump has an opportunity, and Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary who gets this kind of stuff, that's where you have an opportunity to lay a real marker down. The swamp exists because there's too many people who looked at this Clinton Foundation and said, I only make a couple $100,000 as a firm off their audit. But by getting in bed with the Clinton Global Initiative, and in some cases getting in bed with Clinton, I'm going to get on the money spigot here. I'm going to get access to multilateral stuff. I'm going to be able to concoct deals around the world. So I'll turn a blind eye to all this fraud in order to get to meet these current world leaders and former world leaders and CEOs and movie stars and fancy media people, et cetera, at the Clinton Global Initiative. I'll turn a blind eye to this because it's business development. If you can then turn this around, which I think the Trump administration has the ability to do that, and land on these accounting firms and say, no, you don't get to cleanse yourself by going from Ernst & Young, and there is somebody from Ernst & Young, we were going to be naming names, not today, there is somebody from Ernst & Young who affixed that firm's signature to a fraudulent audit and now is off going around claiming that that person is a charity expert. We're going to take name names and kick ass on all of these accountants and law firms that have said, nobody will ever catch us. The Democrats will always be in control, and even if the Republicans win, we'll still have our Democratic operatives in the IRS and Department of Justice. We'll get away with this game forever. We'll outlast them. No, you won't. No, you're not going to outlast them. And the day of reckoning is coming with a high water mark, November 15th, 2018. If the Clintons manage to defer this, they have an easy choice. They submit another set of false and materially misleading tax returns. They will only be continuing their pattern and practice of engaging in fraud. And they will be building the argument for us in an even more aggressive conspiracy and RICO case against everybody involved in this if they choose that path. So that's one thing you could do, and I hope you do that, because that only means the pain is going to be even bigger. The other approach is to say, Uncle, I've had enough of this. Donald Trump is not going to be impeached. That blue wave, the only place the blue wave is going to happen is in toilet bowls across America that use Tidy, the Tidy bowl cleaner. That's where you're going to see a lot of blue waves, because I remember that stuff is
The
blue.
commercial with the guy on the boat.
And it's blue, I think. You know, that's where the blue waves are going to be. In the election booths, not so much. So I'm putting the professional advisors on notice. And then I'll also now put, there are many, I just was going over, I have a little list, and it's quite long. And the number of professional, sophisticated donors, rich people or experienced people who have their own foundations or have a family foundation that have given money to this Clinton charity fraud, in some cases over many years, Bill Gates, the number of people who have tens, as a group, hundreds of billions of dollars in private foundations that have made these taxable expenditures which are illegal, which have not made an attempt to get their money back, which have not disclosed their bad actions, which continue to gain the benefit of growing the difference between their annual income and their expenses, which tends to be positive, tax-free, so they can build their power, build their influence around the world. The number of sophisticated professional donors who have played along with the Clintons in the hope of gaining favors and also protecting themselves from aggressive justice and tax oversight is a long list, okay? And it's a lot of money. And
Well past time.
And it is well past time to go after these people.
Right.
So we will be naming names shortly, and there are some surprising people on the list. One of them is a vocal critic for Bill Clinton, of Donald Trump, acting all high and mighty as a very senior senator. We're not going to mention the name today because we'll be closing in on that person soon.
Nice.
And the family around this fraudulent private foundation, which is not anywhere near as big as the Gates Foundation, but it's operated by a billionaire who should know better. And so we're going to be going sequentially through that list. It is more than 50 names at present, just in the US alone, and there's a similar list we have of people internationally. As we drive towards this November 15th timeframe, each day that passes is one less day that you have to come clean and lessen your potential liability. Because if you fight this at the same time that the governments around the world are tightening attention, you're playing a very losing game, a game where you could lose a lot, not simply on having failed to disclose that you made, let's say, $10 million in grants or 5 million grants to a fraud.
Whoops.
Your penalty could be if the IRS, an enervated IRS under a new leader, says, you know what, you don't deserve to have a private foundation. You owe us back taxes, interest, and penalties, and that just happens to be about equal to the assets in your foundation. Thank you very much. We'll pay down the debt with that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at here, and there's not a lot across the land. There's not a lot of sympathy for the 0.00001%,
Billionaires.
the globalists, as Bernie would say, what do they call it?
The billionaires.
Billionaires and millionaires. But there's not a lot of sympathy for those folk, particularly those who created their billions by operating near monopolies, or in the case of out there in Silicon Valley, intolerant social media operations that think they can censor and bring us to 1984. Did that just happen to us?
It keeps happening. It's unbelievable what's going on today. I don't think it's interrupting the broadcast, but it's making me nuts.
All right. So they're seeing the screen?
I believe so. The comments are not saying otherwise.
All right. So as I say, here's the good news. We get to point 7. The investigations that have been outstanding here, the ones that are admitted to publicly, the FBI investigation of the Clinton Foundation for corruption the latest one began by January of 2016. Now we can be very,
It's a matter.
Yeah.
There's two kinds of matter. There's matter and doesn't matter.
And it don't matter. Yeah. So we can be sure that whatever work, and it'll be really interesting to go over the ground of what work actually did happen starting January 2016. There is a file. And the FBI is not going to be able to say, oh, we bleach bit that too. Hillary donated some extra bleach bit, so when it seemed like she was going to lose, we decided we better bleach bit that file. I hope the equivalent of internal affairs in a police department is going tooth and nail over the period July 2016 forward. You know, what was happening through the election and then through the period when Christopher Wray took over. And now, afterwards, I think fresh set of eyes have to say, look, what was going on with this investigation? It's not complicated to go and say, you know what, here's a foundation supposed to be operating in Little Rock, supposed to have audits, isn't operating in Little Rock, doesn't have audits, shut the damn thing down. It's not that complicated. You know, I understand from all the chatter that the way we hear about the Manafort trial, that the way the feds like to think about it is they only go after somebody, they win in 90% of all cases. So what that says is they only prosecute cases where there's a 90% chance of winning, which means they have
that makes sense. Why do you want to go after?
I'd rather have it slightly lower because that gives the prosecutor too much leeway to let somebody off, right? If you say the standard has to be the prosecutor who has the ability to enrich all my friends and allies, putting them into law firms defending these things, I'm only going to go forward if it's a 92% chance of winning. You know, why don't you go forward with an 80% chance? I don't see the reasoning of, you know.
Well, why, how do they know the chance of winning? Don't they just say, well, hey, wait a minute, here's a videotape of this guy breaking into a bank or something, so that seems like he did it, let's prosecute.
Well, I'm saying they know their record of winning is 92%, let's say. Dershowitz cited that. So that's roughly, they don't want to go lower than that, which means they're probably psychologically in their mind to have a very, very high standard of going forward before there is a prosecution, unless we're talking about Manafort or Republicans, right? Because, you know, you look at...
I think all bets are off on this stuff. This is like uncharted territory. We've never seen, like, they are aggressively pursuing strategic targets that play a role in a bigger game that we haven't been shown the rule book to yet. Like taking someone like Paul Manafort and sticking him in solitary confinement like that, it's so unprecedented. That hasn't been discussed enough.
Well, you know, maybe it's time to ask where John Brennan actually is from. Maybe he's from East Germany or something.
He's in trouble.
He should be in trouble. He really should be. If he's not already before a grand jury, he should be.
Yeah.
So the final point here is that this whole mess, really from October 23rd, 1997 forward, could not have happened without multiple people inside various organs of government being aware of it, cooperating in it, obstructing the process of bringing all of this to light. It is not that complicated to look at the rule book when Bill Clinton was president and shortly after he left and notice that the tax filing for 1999 says the Clinton Foundation, Presidential Foundation, only had 2 directors. Under Arkansas law, you have to have 3. You could never have fewer than 3. So, you know, it wouldn't have been tough to say, as Rod Rosenstein, when he got there in January or so of 2001, and by February 2001, wait a minute, this thing is not an organization. It should not be allowed to continue operating, and it hasn't even broken ground in early 2001 on the actual building of the foundation. So shut the damn thing down, not unlike what's going on with the Obama Foundation. They haven't done anything yet. They haven't corrected their books. Why is it so complicated to say the Obama Foundation's known public filings are a joke? Donald Trump is the president. You know, let's go back over old ground, all recent presidential foundations, and have, you know, apply the laws equally to Democrat, Republican alike. Let's go screen all of them. But I can tell you, the Obama Foundation does not pass muster, and certainly the Clinton Foundation needs to shut her down.
But didn't the Obama Foundation stop construction for something related to just that?
I don't know why they stopped. I think they're having great difficulty because what they're trying to do,
they cut down trees in the park, which they said they weren't going to do.
It's not just trees in the park. They're going through a protected Frederick Law Olmsted, beautiful park that's on the National Register of Historic Places, and say, that's for other people.
Let's put a building here.
Yeah, let's put a gigantic temple to Barack Obama. It looks like an Easter Island head. Let's put that right here. Forget this guy Olmsted. That's yesterday's news.
Did you, I'm sure you did, but you do know about this nanny that he had named like Turdy or something like that, who was a transvestite?
I do know about that.
That's crazy. I just found out about that last week from David Hawkins on patreon.com/crowdsource the truth.
Well, actually, there's a book about Barack Obama's mother and Barack Obama called, I think it's something about Stanley Dunham, or I forget the name of it, written by a former New York Times writer to great acclaim, and it paints a disturbing picture of his upbringing.
Yeah,
But,
well, I'd be curious to know more about that because it seems quite weird.
yeah. So again, this is different. This show is different than even the beloved Fox News, and where there's please. The people who run Fox News, you got to screen your advertisers. I am just really, as Hillary Clinton would say, I am sick and tired of watching good shows being interrupted by advertisement for Depend diapers and cars for kids and crazy charities and
Mostly pharmaceuticals on there. Anytime I see it, do you have yawn, tremor, vomiting, hair loss? This will give that to you.
Exactly.
Like there was one for generalized anxiety. It's like, are you worried about the future, your family, your job? And it's like, yeah.
Try some of this. You can get addicted to this.
It's
then you'll
crazy.
be even more worried.
Well, so your hair will fall out, sexual side effects. Then you're definitely going to have anxiety.
Right. So yeah. Note to Fox: there got to be some better advertisers that you can get. Either I've noticed it's either those type of crazy ass commercials or commercials for some restaurant in like 32nd Street on Lexington Avenue.
That's got to be local advertising from Time Warner.
I know, but it's come on, have some standards. Screen your advertiser.
Charles, you're hitting on the main problem that I'm trying to solve with Crowdsource the Truth, is that I just don't think news that's funded by corporate advertisers can ever be true to the people that are watching the news. They're beholden to those corporate advertisers, pharmaceutical companies, oil companies, Lockheed Martin, whoever it might be.
Well, the one person who's not advertising because they probably can't afford to anymore is General Electric.
Yeah.
So if we'll jump quickly into the way we normally do things, and we do have some nuggets for you coming up on, so stay tuned, on the details of why the Clinton Foundation is so badly wrong. Jason, we've talked about this. Both of us are shadow banned on Twitter.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump is hammering in the news. He's hammering social media for discriminating against conservative views. And I think this is an excellent point.
Yep.
It's one thing, you want to go and get your immunity saying you're a utility, you're a pipe, you're not responsible for what goes over your pipe in social media, that's fine. But the second you say, what we're going to do here, we operate out in Looney Land, on the left coast, and all we're going to do is we're going to screen all the opponents of socialism and globalism. All of those people are not going to be allowed to use this. We're not going to tell you how the standards we use. We're not going to be honest about it. We're not going to show you the statistics about how many people get it. No, we're just going to operate on our whim, the way we want to operate, and we reserve the right to do it in a way which could actually interfere with critical things like elections that are coming up November 6th.
Yeah.
So I think Donald Trump is absolutely right, and others who have been criticizing social media for their capricious ways in which they're discriminating against people, including us.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. Now I say that on Twitter, I have to say, I have enjoyed and I have communicated and met quite a few friends on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten a lot of very timely information on Twitter. Facebook, not so much. But Twitter, I actually enjoy and would like to continue using. This coming from somebody who's shadow banned unfairly. There's no way of, no easy way of contesting that. I tried to. I've had no response back from Twitter explaining why I was.
I thought they gave you the runaround.
No.
The automatic response.
They said, we can't. We don't.
You're like,
try somewhere else.
Who is this?
It's baloney.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll just note to Twitter and note to the Silicon Valley people who think they're going to get away with this. All this is going to do is create an opportunity for a new version of Twitter that doesn't do this.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to get your acts together here.
Mm.
So let me go back into the slide there quickly. Let's not pull up this Alex Jones link.
You sure?
Yeah, because I want to make sure we don't go too far on time.
But I read that story about Bill Maher.
Or you want to put it up? It's fine.
Well, because I don't think he was really being genuine. He was sort of figuring out a way to seem like he was defending Alex Jones while still saying, you know, he thinks Alex Jones should be allowed to say what he wants because, you know, horrible stuff will come out in the rinse, basically calling Alex Jones horrible.
Wait a minute. You don't think Bill Maher's genuine?
I mean, you know.
I mean, how does the Blaze, get off, of all people, talking about labeling Alex Jones a conspiracy theorist? I would argue that Maxine Waters is a conspiracy theorist. That idiot at Meet the Press, what's his name? Geez, I don't watch it that much. The guy with the goatee.
I don't know.
Todd. Well, anyway, the name will come to me.
Chuck
Todd. Yeah, Chuck Todd. I mean, the number of people, Fake Yapper, Jake Tapper, all these people who go on and on and on about, first it was trying to find MH370, and then it's now, Russian collusion, delusion stuff. They are journalists.
Right.
When they spout off with their crazy theories. But an opponent of them is automatically a conspiracy theorist. Now, Alex Jones does have some.
But see, even just saying, "Oh, this person's a conspiracy theorist," that's taking a weaponized CIA term. Because here's the thing: whatever people think happened on 9/11, any discussion of it is a conspiracy theory. Short of someone coming forward and saying, hey, here's a videotape of Osama bin Laden or George Bush or whoever in a room with the 19 guys who got on the plane explaining whatever, they're confessing. Anything else is theorizing about what happened. And certainly people who believe the mainstream story would say 19 individuals conspired to crash airplanes. So that's a conspiracy, and if we're going to talk about it, it's a theory. Just using that word, conspiracy theorist, is Bill Maher or anyone feeding into that pejorative, that's got a new meaning to it. People think conspiracy means crazy.
Well, to give you an example of that, there was, I think it was last week the White Nationalist March? I think it was. Last Sunday, I believe it was. And, there was a lot of chatter about how this is diabolical and how this is going to be horrible. And in the end, all these people who are white nationalists are horrible, and many of them, and 20 to 40 people showed up.
Right.
So I'm watching the next day, and and thousands of Antifa people are so courageous that they can't expose their faces, they
Right.
cover themselves up with mats.
Cowards.
They're cowards. They start with, they're looking to create violence, to instigate violence. 20 to 40 people show up. We don't even know how many of the 20 to 40 were actually white nationalists and how many may have been
Working for George Soros?
Exactly. So 20 to 40 people show up, and they're discussing this on the conspiracy theory MSNBC, and as a Princeton professor is saying, well, it's likely that most of the people in the white nationalist group had gone to ground in advances. That's why there were only 20 to 40. That's not conspiracy theory. You're a Princeton professor, and you're saying, okay, the objective facts are thousands of Antifa thugs showed up, 20 to 40 white nationalists, and the reason is because all the other white nationalists have gone to ground. And that's not conspiracy theory?
It's just made up nonsense. The best research on what happened to MH370 and MH17 is coming from Field McConnell and David Hawkins.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are talking about technologies that could, they lay it out. How does this Australian satellite thing not know where a plane is going for 7 hours? They're like, what if a nuclear missile was on there? It's simply implausible to presume that they can't track an item as large as a 777 for 6 hours.
Well, in the news is in, it's not like the public is really ignorant. That's why CNN, Chicken Noodle News, or the Clinton News Network, the recent ratings, cartoons did better.
Good cartoon. You got Chuck and Morty or whatever, Rick and Morty.
Ren and Stimpy.
That's great. I love Ren and Stimpy.
But the thing about cartoons, if you think about it, the population is aging, and the proportion of people who watch cartoons has got to be a lot smaller than historical. And so here you have, I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, because the number kids watch cartoons that are made.
But aren't there more kids?
No.
Oh.
The proportion of people over 50, over 55 is growing proportion of society.
The Simpsons and Family Guy?
Some of us do. But so the left already controls most major newspapers and the major television operations. But they've also gotten involved, as we see, the left is heavily influential out there in Silicon Valley and in Internet Alley here in New York. And you know, the notion that there ought to be balance restored to the media by censoring the right is ridiculous. I mean, if you wanted to go through a process of saying, you know, what we need to do, which I don't support, but if you wanted to say what we need to do is ensure there's some balance of views on media writ large, what you would be doing is you would be giving Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and people like that even more coverage in newspaper. You'd force all of their radio shows to be in the, you know, these left-leaning syndicates. You'd force all of their columns into these newspapers. You know, the notion that the media complex and the public needs to be protected from conservative views is absurd.
Hey, shouldn't it just be that, you know, short of deliberate deception or inciting others to do crime, you can say whatever you want?
Yeah, well, I think that's basically the standard. You can't shout. The official standard, I believe, generally is, and I'm not a lawyer, is that you can't go into a theater and shout fire when there's no fire. I mean,
that's deliberate deception.
You can't do that. But short of that, you should be allowed to express views, even repugnant views, and people who disagree with those repugnant views could set you straight. You know, that's
or ignore you.
Or ignore you, exactly. There are a few channels on television, a few channels on radio, not many newspapers left. I mean, there are a number of them, nothing compared to what it used to be, that many thousands. So
that was also due to Bill Clinton allowing the consolidation of media, wasn't it?
Exactly, exactly.
So people don't realize that.
We should spend a few seconds talking about this thug, John Brennan. And, you know, to me, first of all, I hadn't really heard him talk until after he lost his security clearance, and now he's all over the airwaves because he's so, you know, disadvantaged.
Sheikh John bin Brennan?
Exactly. Sheikh John bin Stupid. I mean, this is a guy who, you know, I think the American public deserves to know how an admitted communist during the era when the Soviet Union was very much a rising force to be reckoned with, this John Brennan, as a young man, decided to be a communist. And then from there, somehow got into the CIA, retained his security clearances at the CIA, despite those flaws in his background, at a time when it wasn't clear that communism would be vanquished. Then he converts to Islam.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's been working for the wrong side all along.
Yeah, and you know, somehow the powers that be say, you know what we ought to do? This guy's never going to get across the line in Obama's first term as head of the CIA. Let's screw things up in Benghazi when he's, you know, a national security, not the official advisor, but an advisor on the team, and wait till Obama gets his second term. Then we'll put this guy in as head of the CIA, and he's kvetching at this point about losing his security clearance, having, you know, I would argue we're going to find out that this guy, probably acting directly under the orders or indirectly under the orders of Barack Obama himself, was the center point, the linchpin in the effort to stop Trump, to protect Hillary, and then after Trump won, to obstruct Trump's ability to seat his administration, to run his administration. We're going to find out that this puke, and that's what he is, nothing but a puke, was very centrally involved in all of this. And I think we're being too kind. It's not like in the United States of America, each of us should be settling for, you know, eighth best. You know, we spend the most money on government by an order of magnitude any country on earth. We spend over $6 trillion a year on government. We should be able to find a CIA director better than that puke. And that guy was in office for 4 years. I don't understand why it's taken so long to revoke his security clearance. I think he's getting off light with that. I think he should be indicted.
Well, it might not be over yet.
Well, let's hope it isn't. And I don't think it's just him. I think there are a large number of people. He cleaned house at the CIA. He and Obama, they cleaned house at the CIA. he and Mueller and Comey, they cleaned house at the FBI, they cleaned house in the military.
Cleaned the house, meaning got out all the people who weren't communists and Wahhabyists.
Exactly. I mean, the Patriots, he made life very difficult for many of these people. And this is somebody who, he can swan around like a peacock now, acting like he's impervious to criticism. This man has a lot to account for, and I think we in the crowd need to hold him to account in a nonviolent way. We need to make sure that this man gets investigated, gets prosecuted, gets convicted, and goes away for however long he needs to go away if he's guilty of the kinds of crimes it seems to me he might be guilty of, which could include, he's the one who accused Donald Trump of committing treason. I think this is pot calling kettle moment.
Well, it's the way they always do it, right? Accusing other people of exactly what they are doing.
It's called gaslighting.
Exactly.
And our mutual friend Richard Pollack, who does great work, this is an old story a few weeks ago, but why in the hell does Hillary Clinton still have a security clearance? I mean, think about this for a second. This is somebody who decided that it was a really super smart idea to operate the most important department of the government, one of the most likely to be spied upon, using a private server.
In the commode.
In the commode. That's where, look at that. It's a kissable moment.
She's like, meh.
Yeah. Oh my God. But, this person displayed such bad judgment while she was Secretary of State, after she was Secretary of State, as her records were under subpoena. Her team is bleach bidding them and destroying devices. They still haven't turned over all the records. She may or may not ever have signed the required forms that acknowledge that she understood the security clearance, that she was turning over documents and other information on the way out the door February 1st, 2013. Why does she still have a security clearance? Why does Uma Abedin have one? Why does Valerie Jarrett have one? And for that matter, why does Barack Obama have one?
Well, Charles, I wonder why any of these people need to retain security clearances after they leave the employ of the United States government. I think that's a major problem. Bill Binney said that during his tenure of 32 years at the NSA, the biggest problem that he saw was the growing reliance on these outside contractors.
Right.
So when people leave, I think they should relinquish their security clearance, because otherwise it's basically a motivation to get into the FBI, get into the CIA, get into the State Department, get that security clearance, and then monetize the top secret information of the United States.
Well, I would go a step further even and join you in that, and saying that the notion of private contractors.
Yes.
Now, if you're really going to be...
They got to eliminate that.
If you're serving this country, i.e. you're sacrificing, you're going to Washington, D.C. to make less money than you could in the private sector, and you're doing it because you love this country, I think that's a wonderful thing. People should be congratulated for doing that. But you shouldn't create this two-tier system where the servants are not making that much money, but they contract all the work to private contractors who charge you through the roof to do the work that the people in government service should have been doing.
Right.
So I think that whole area needs to be examined.
Yeah.
And here, this guy, I don't know, did you meet this guy?
I did. I was going to say, this is one contractor who I support, but we're seeing how...
Upper right.
How this, all these ads. I want to get the information, not the ads. But so I should supposedly, I guess, subscribe to this. But Chris Paronto, definitely a CIA contractor who I support, but I think he probably doesn't support the notion of being a CIA contractor anymore. They were left to die, actually set up to die.
Right, and then he lost his security clearance.
He lost it, exactly, because he was calling them out for what they were doing that was dangerous, illegal, murderous. It's crazy. That's what I mean. These people that retain security clearances after they leave, it's shocking to me, Charles, for people that can't see this. Chris Paronto is an honest man and a patriot and a guy who has risked his life countless times to protect American interests, and the way he's been treated is disgraceful.
I agree. So if we go back into those slides,
yes,
we're almost through this page. Judge Janine last night was on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, she really was great. And here's a link to those of you who didn't watch the show, to the entire show with the commercials out of it. And she just was fantastic. She had Rudy Giuliani on in the beginning, who was great, and a number of other wonderful guests. So I'd really commend both this show and her book. That's, I believe, a #1 New York Times bestseller.
Well done, Judge Janine.
So,
hard-working lady.
indeed. Yeah, I think Donald Trump here, it's interesting, this only has 84 shares, but Donald Trump is being kind.
Yeah.
I would start by saying he's a suspicious criminal.
He's a Wahhabi, extremist.
Well, and so anybody who'd make two choices as bad as in college in the 70s and 80s, whenever it was, deciding you're a communist, and then
at the CIA,
CIA,
deciding you're a Wahhabi Muslim with a prayer rug in your office. It's like, what?
Yeah, and then beyond that, to go and have 4 suspicious years, 3 or 4 years, working as a private contractor, CEO of Management Analysis Group. What's that all about? That's a private contractor. I mean, this is somebody who I think either slipped through the cracks or was pushed through the cracks to be a key cog in the Obama administration. And we look at the track record, 8 years under Obama, leave aside for a moment the disastrous domestic policies. Just park those over there. Give him a pass, fail, or pass on that one. But let's give him letter grades on his international policy. I mean, what part of the world did he not screw up when John Brennan was a senior national security advisor and then head of the CIA?
Charles, Tomcat is reminding me that during Kevin Shipp's presentation in Texas, he said that Hillary Clinton had obtained her top secret security clearance from the CIA while she was First Lady. So for many years, they've been having access to this type of information that, she's been filling up the commode server with possibly, dangerous stuff.
Well, I'm sorry, with that, I don't think that's correct. I mean, it may be that she got a top security clearance, but I don't think it's correct for, let's say, the husband of the President of the United States to automatically get a top secret security clearance because the wife is President of the United States. That's baloney.
Yeah,
I mean,
why does the wife?
Well, I'm just saying, let's say the wife deserved it as President of the United States, right? And
oh, no, I'm talking about when Bill was president. Why is the First Lady having security clearance?
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you should actually, I mean, I know I never did top secret work, but I did, sensitive business work where I was explicitly told you cannot tell
even your wife,
even your wife, where you're going, let alone, because my ex-wife worked for a competing firm. You can't even say where you're going on a business trip.
Because it gives them insight.
Right. Why does that particular firm, what are they doing there, Charles? It's you can't even do that.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of tough questions need to be answered here.
And see, the thing that's interesting to me is that the notion that someone like Kevin Shipp could do a show on the internet and tell people about this, you're never seeing that on CNN, you're never seeing that even on Fox. And now when you have social media networks trying to shut out things like Alex Jones, things like Crowdsource the Truth, or even if it's not a social media network, if it's a collection of operatives who are gaming that social media network for the benefit of whoever they may be working for, that's a dangerous thing. So we're having to stay on our toes and move some of that sensitive information, like the things that Kevin Shipp discusses, over to Patreon to try to protect people's ability to get that information.
It's good stuff. So this here is worth hitting if we haven't done it yet.
Oop. Coffee break, Charles. What is this? What is this talking about?
Just hit that.
Spill coffee on your computer.
So this is somebody. This is a story that deserves. It has 5,500 Facebook shares already, and it's, I guess, two days old. But this should not be allowed to happen.
For political reasons, they're stripping the security clearance.
Right, and so I'd be very interested to know who has the power to issue security clearances, and I'd love to understand how Ben Rhodes, why he was denied a security clearance in the transition and ultimately became a senior national security staffer under Barack Obama, why he was denied the position, and then how he got the clearance under Obama. Who are the people who make those decisions? And that really should be nonpartisan, and not, we're nonpartisan in name only. Truly nonpartisan. People who don't care about politics, who are not married to people who care, who don't have children or parents who are involved in politics. Truly nonpartisan people need to make these calls. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think that we have partisan hacks still in the security process, and I think they are still making it difficult for the Trump administration to do what the Trump administration was elected to do, among other things, to drain and kill this damn swamp.
Yeah. Got to close down the swamp, Charles. Swampy.
So this has not gotten enough publicity yet, this polling data, but I believe that if this polling data is right, that Trump's approval rating amongst African Americans is up 36%. If that is true, then there ain't going to be no blue wave anytime soon. And that is the most remarkable accomplishment in modern American politics. Forget the election in 2016, that this person, Donald Trump, with all the negative publicity that has been rained on him since before Inauguration Day, that he would manage to garner that type of support amongst a segment of this population that has been taken for granted by Democrats for decades, is a remarkable and even during a period when Omarosa was making the kind of allegations that she's now recanting. She's now saying he's not a racist. He just wants to start a race war.
What?
I mean, this Omarosa should just zip it.
Why does she? I haven't heard any of that. Why would
just
Donald
happened.
Trump want
I don't want to give her too much oxygen. She's
right.
But this is a very significant development.
I'll tell you, Charles, most black people that I speak to in private or off camera are quietly in favor of Donald Trump and mostly in fear of being called Uncle Tom by other black people for not saying Trump is a racist, because that's what they hear on the news.
But at 36%, that's going to change. I mean, that's remarkable for any Republican to have that type, even though if you look into history, Republicans should get a lot of credit. Now, the final point on this page, this Chelsea Clinton comment. I said at the time when I noticed it, that she, with a straight face, I mean, this person, pottyhead, has a PhD, and I mean the leniency that she must have been given to get her various degrees, to get into Stanford and Oxford and elsewhere at Columbia, is ridiculous. She says, you know what? Roe v. Wade happened in around 1973, and that just happens to be when women enter the workforce in increasing numbers. So that means that the increased wages that women have earned by more of them entering the economy and the labor force, that means that that abortion has contributed 3.5 trillion into the economy. I mean, that's about like saying, because the sun came up today, I'm happy. I mean, there's no necessary correlation here. There's no deep diving examination of the negative consequences of abortion, particularly of an excess of abortions, of people using abortions, as I believe does happen, as a method of birth control, as opposed to reserving them to being safe, legal, and rare. It's a contentious area to consider, but certainly if this is the caliber of Chelsea Clinton's, quote, analysis, I think she needs to give back those degrees, go back to school, and try to study a little bit harder in her copious spare time. I mean, this is really an embarrassing comment, and she's being rightfully called out for it. So today, the real question today on Bill Clinton's birthday, his 72nd birthday, is who in the hell is out there today joining with Bill Clinton to celebrate his birthday? Let's think about it. I think this is purely coincidental, Jason, but if you hit the first link,
Little Rock supporters gathering again to toast Bill Clinton for his many accomplishments.
Yeah.
They like the strip club.
Well, it turns out that at the same time, this is not far away.
Oh, yes, right. That's crazy.
Right, and you would have thought that...
Baphomet Monument.
there's a satanic temple going up in Little Rock. I mean, wonder who's building that and how much it'll cost. Maybe the Clinton Foundation's paying for it, but
we need to hang on this for a moment. This is so outrageous.
Senator Rapert will tell you that our monument is an attack upon Christianity. But then Senator Rapert also once described a gay pride parade as one of the most offensive displays against Christians and an attempt to intimidate people who believe in the Word of God.
I'm not going to listen to that guy, but he was talking about a senator who is saying that it's an attack against Christians. Well, I think it's an attack against more than that. It's an attack against decency to be worshiping Baphomet. I mean, this is the same deity that Tholema worshipers and Luciferians. I mean, this is one of these occult images where people who support this are supporting murder and rape and ritual torture, and I mean, it's just not acceptable.
I mean, so what I would have thought in a place like Little Rock, and I've only been there once, but I believe now when you fly into Little Rock, you land at the Bill and Hillary Clinton airport, and then you get on in your Uber and you go down President Clinton Avenue, and then there's, the Clintons have a little bit of influence, even though Arkansas today is much more of a Republican red-leaning state. They still today, I would guess, that the Clintons would have the ability to say, you know what, why don't you open up your satanic temple, say, in September, after my birthday? You know, if you really need to open it up, why are you opening it up right before Bill Clinton's 72nd birthday party? And yet, nobody stopped this from happening. You know, this is really suspicious to me. And
special thanks to Senator Jason Rapert. Who is he?
Don't know.
But he's a Satanist? Do people know we have satanic senators?
I don't know. This could be somebody who's standing up for freedom of speech, for all we know.
I'm sorry. If your religion supports murdering people, that is like, you know, freedom of speech doesn't. Freedom of religion, you can't say, well, our religion includes sacrificing babies. That doesn't fly.
Doesn't fly with me. But anyway, this is in it. I was trying to relate this to Chelsea Clinton's coincidence issue. She's going to argue that there is a meaningful relationship between the date that Roe v. Wade was passed and women entering the workforce. I mean, give me a break.
Chelsea Clinton.
So the second question for the gatherers out there, and I guess the party hasn't even started probably out there, it's only, I think it's an hour earlier, all these Democrats who got behind the Me Too push, which I think, with the exception of rushing to judgment and failing to allow people the benefit of a fair trial, innocent until proven guilty, you're going to, you know, do what you did to people who have been getting a pass for way too long. Two questions. How do you stand there, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton? What's your view on letting this asshole, Keith Ellison, continue to run to be the highest legal officer of the state of Minnesota from his position as the #2 guy in the Democratic Party? Why is this man still on the stage? And by the way, the longer he stays on the stage, the happier I am, because it's going to be easier and easier to discredit any supporter of Keith Ellison. Forget his religious issue. Put that on the side. It's not an issue for me. Focus only on, here's somebody, two separate people have made credible allegations.
And showing their face, their names.
In the state, made famous most recently by groping Al Franken, the Lion of the Senate, right? That book that was written about him by him.
Lion in the Senate.
Exactly. No longer in the Senate. In that state, you know, you're going to allow this guy to continue to run for Attorney General by all means. You know, that's going to be great because independents are going to rise in revolt and rebellion against this. But, you know, come on, Hillary. You were supposed to be the first female president of the United States. What's your view on this?
Crack the glass ceiling. He's lying to the Senate.
Yeah.
Crazy. We're living in a crazy world, Charles.
I agree. And so then, you know, earlier when the allegations against Donald Trump, a set of allegations came out, Ivanka was quoted in this middle link as saying that, you know, Chelsea was quoted this link here about saying that Ivanka has to comment on the allegations of Stormy Daniels and other allegations.
What?
Yeah.
But she doesn't have to comment on her father raping every woman that comes within 10 feet of him?
Specifically Juanita Broderick in particular, but our friend Kathleen Willey and, you know, I saw actually a lot of times on Twitter there are some funny things that what was it, that Donald Trump is under fire for paying, what was it that he paid Stormy Daniels, like 130 grand, you know, whereas Bill Clinton had to spend how much on Paula Jones?
800.
800, and you know,
It's much better value for Donald Trump.
well, much better negotiator. But
Sorry, that's not funny. But in the case of Donald Trump, the allegations are consensual sex, and he just said, "Here's 130 grand. Don't tell anybody." Is that legal or illegal?
it's legal, and I think that, I mean, that part of it's legal. Whether it's a disguised campaign contribution is an issue, but
Because of the way Michael Cohen did it and
yeah,
everything.
yeah. But you know,
But you're allowed to give someone 130 grand to not tell your wife something, right? There's nothing inherently illegal about that. Your moral judgment of it becomes a separate matter, but it's different than straight raping a woman.
right. But the double standard here, that's what the D in Democrat stands for. I think the double standard that, you know,
Or
that a
devil
Republican
worship.
has to answer, every Republican has to answer for the you know, misguided or illegal behavior of one Republican. On the other hand, in the case of a Democrat, not so much. And in the case of Ivanka Trump, who by all accounts has led a decent life.
Charles, I think the router might be under attack or something. There's something weird going on today.
Really?
I mean, there's very good internet performance in this apartment, and this keeps cutting out, and something weird happening.
Well, maybe we should lose the video. That might be.
I mean, that should have virtually no impact. Something is going on that I'll have to look into. But anyway, sorry, please
No
continue.
problem. So if we go back into the slide.
I think the D in Democrat stands for devil worshippers.
So if we could just pull this up a little bit. If we hit this link here, this is a link to Stuart Dean's story done around his last appearance with us, I think,
Nice.
or one of his last appearances, with the rooftop
yes.
garden.
An obscene violation of charity law and principles.
Right. So, you know, this is, if you look at that picture there, and it appears to take up a large amount of space.
Yeah.
It's a 14,000 square foot rooftop garden, okay? And we still don't know who actually paid for it, how much it cost. And, you know, the books and records don't appear to show an increase in the cost, in property, plant, and equipment equal to the substantial amount it must have cost to put this thing in, which over here looks to have a putting green in the background.
I mean, that's why I've always said that it's a mini golf course and a strip club and all that stuff.
Well, and this we know, this apartment here is 5,000 square feet.
Let's go to Google Earth and we'll take a closer look at the thing. So this is I mean, it looks like actually the same representation that they used for the article there. But okay, so here's this thing on top is an apartment?
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, why? First of all, why is there a garden? Is the public allowed up there?
No, I don't think so.
So this is just Bill Clinton's Arkansas mega penthouse.
Right, in the center of, it used to be 31 acres, but then they carved out a few for this other charity. This is a 31 acre parcel in downtown Little Rock, maintained at city expense, where Bill Clinton has, and his family, but mostly Bill, have the right to occupy this thing. Now it has a 14,000 square foot garden. He's not paying a penny for it, nor is he declaring the what I would call is the private gain, the substantial rent-free existence in everybody's head on top of this structure, on a parcel where security is controlled. Who else has what other nearly bankrupt person has a 31 acre estate by the river, built by, you know, donors and who knows what, alongside one or more captive catering concerns inside the building? It's preposterous.
I like the IMAX dinosaur movie. You watch that
So
again.
if we go back into the slide for a second, the numbers tell an important story here. These numbers are not in the Clinton Foundation records. Okay, they're purposefully omitted. These crucial documents, the transmission letters back and forth between the then president of the Clinton Foundation, Skip Rutherford, who subsequently became dean, and is making money as a result.
Dean of what?
Of the Clinton School of Public Service. These deeply flawed numbers show that the net usable square feet of this facility prior to the Hanging Garden of Babylon of Little Rock were a total of 91,000 square feet. You see that number? It says total, the bottom in red. 91,000 net over there. Yep, 91,000 usable square feet, of which the National Archives has 69,000 and Bill Clinton has 22,000. Okay?
Seems a lot.
Well, but that's before you think through the extra 14,000
on the roof,
right? Which aren't counted in here. How come people haven't gone back into this and said, now wait a minute, on November 18th, 2004, yes, you gave us this donation of 68,000, and yes, you retained 22,000, but now you got another 14,000, which means that this building is a much larger and more valuable than it used to be. Where's all the accounting math on that? Was the National Archives given fair value in terms of the $7.2 million endowment that they got? Was that the right number? Is it more expensive to maintain this massage parlor and whatever now that there is a Hanging Garden of Babylon on top of it?
Let me see if I have this queued up.
But Enron was hacking Congress, and they gave it right to Chris. I don't know anything about that.
I don't know anything about that, Charles.
But these are all reasonable questions.
Yeah.
And that's before, in another broadcast, we will take you through the numbers themselves. This estimate of 91,239 square feet, that number is gamed as well, according to the professionals I'm talking to. That's been manipulated and is false and materially misleading to begin with.
Wow.
So let's go to the next.
Sorry.
That's okay. Let's go to the next page. Now, there's a lot of text on this page, and the reason we did it this way for the people who can print this out later and read it. Okay, a lot of people say to me, Charles, you make this so complicated. You know, how come we can't just have a cut and dried explanation of what's wrong?
The fraud is complicated.
The fraud is on purpose. That's what this type of fraud.
That's right. You need a Charles Ortel to even understand this stuff.
And a crowd and a Jason Goodman. Yeah. But these are excerpts from documents that are, in my view, are purposefully omitted from the Clinton Foundation website. These first three are from the agreement, the final agreement between the National Archives and the Clinton Foundation, and it actually includes the city of Little Rock. If we can take the shading off, if it's okay for a second, this document says there's a series of recitals upon which the whole agreement is premised.
Yes. Okay?
Forget this long recital for first. Let's look at paragraph 1. Truth of the recital. So truth of the recital being that NARA and the Foundation acknowledge and agree that the matters set forth in the recitals to this joint use agreement are true and correct. In other words, the parties say every recital is true and correct. So this says that the Foundation has received a final determination. That is not true. The IRS does not give final determinations. It gives conditional determinations.
And then things change and they change.
And you may not have a final. So the notion that you would strike the agreement for the Foundation to have a final determination is a premise thought. Then you notice that we keep saying organized and operated, okay? This thing is supposed to be organized and operated exclusively for what? For charitable and educational purposes. It doesn't say for charitable and scientific and educational purposes. It doesn't say for charitable and religious and scientific and educational purposes. It says exclusively.
Purposes? No.
It says exclusively for charitable and educational purposes, right? On March 24th, 2004, so approximately 8 months before this document was signed. Look down here. The corporation, this is this Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative, Inc. I left that initiative. This is a subsidiary organized by Bruce Lindsay, who was then a lawyer for the Clinton Foundation, not an executive, not a trustee. This corporation, controlled by the Clinton Foundation, is organized exclusively for charitable, religious. How can this subsidiary operate for religious purposes if the parent...
That's the Baphomet thing,
maybe.
maybe.
It could be, but if that's a religion. But so this one's operated for charitable, religious, educational, or scientific purposes. So it's operated, this is organized outside the scope of the charter of the Clinton Foundation 8 months before they signed this agreement up here. So let's go back up here. So 8 months before they enter into an agreement where they say everything we say here is true, they commit a gigantic foot fault, basically blowing up the foundation. And then you go on and says it's a publicly supported organization within the meaning of Section 509A1. A publicly supported organization within the meaning of Section 509A1 cannot be controlled by the Clinton family. It can't engage in extraneous activities. It can't enrich the Clinton family. It has to be, as it says here, the charitable purposes include constructing, equipping, endowing, and providing continuing support for the William J. Clinton Presidential Library. That is what? To house, preserve, and make available through historical research, exhibitions, educational programs, and other activities, the presidential records and historical materials of President William Jefferson Clinton. It's not
including dinosaur movies.
It's not and catered, massage experiences. It's not to engage in, promoting awareness of obesity and the dangers of obesity. It's not to be engaging in international activities at any time or convening, crooked people together in closed-door parties in New York around the time of the UN General Assembly to concoct international deals or to fight climate change. No, none of that. This is the narrow set purposes. These are the narrow purposes of the Clinton Foundation, plainly set forth in their charter, confirmed in this document, this essential document, which is supposed to operate into perpetuity. Okay? And then when it talks about the Clinton Foundation, meaning of certain terms, the foundation, unless otherwise specifically noted, the term foundation means authorized officers. Bill Clinton was not an authorized officer, director, employee, agent, independent contractor, volunteer, or other persons or groups acting for the foundation or on its behalf. That is Bill Clinton. He's another person acting for the foundation or on its behalf. The only thing he's supposed to be doing is, as far as the foundation is concerned, is to be working on this little rock-based library. Yet, in his own book, My Life, that was published first, I believe, in 2004 and then in 2005, hardback, paperback.
Didn't they take something out in the 2005 version?
Added something in the 2005 version where he talks about how he created his foundation in January of 2001. Okay, he did no such thing.
Laid every brick.
Exactly. He's a man. He's a mason. So the question with all this was the Archivist of the United States. Remember, the Archivist of the United States is a guy called John W. Carlin then, who was appointed while Bill Clinton was president. Did that guy, was he duped? Or was he essentially complicit in this massive set of frauds? Don't tell me that the Archivist of the United States is in charge of protecting all of the books and records of this country, from the very beginning of time that America existed. Don't tell me that that person doesn't have the ability to pick up the phone and get a real lawyer to examine just exactly what happened to Bill Clinton's books and records. This guy was Archivist of the United States when books and records of the Clinton presidency were shipped out of Washington, D.C., while Bill Clinton was still president of the United States in late December, I believe November, December 2000, then early in January. Where's the list of the chain of custody of all of those records? Who made sure that when those records were sent out of Washington, D.C., while Bill Clinton was still president, to some former, car dealership lot in Little Rock?
Not Sandy Berger's pants.
Exactly, or who knows? Who has the chain of custody of all those documents? How do we know that the Clinton presidential records are intact? How do we know? And I certainly suspect that the incriminating records, many of them, those are burned, or bleach bit or whatever.
I don't know anything about that. Got to take it back.
Yeah. So, the big question, this man Carlin is still alive. He's a Democrat. Maybe he's a decent guy. Maybe he's going to stand up and say what really happened. He had a hand in bringing the George H.W. Bush Foundation into existence, though that was a process, I think, that began before he was appointed.
Where is that? In Houston?
That one, there's two of them. H.W., I think, is in Houston, and W is in Dallas, if you remember. So if we go to the next slide.
They named that whole airport after George H.W. Bush, Presidential Library. I'm sorry to derail. I know that annoys you, and I apologize, not my intention, but let's take a look at that monstrosity while I go to the next slide. Wow. Huh. I think Quinn Michaels would be interested in these circles at the George H.W. complex. That's interesting.
And that costs a lot less than the Bill Clinton Library.
Did it? Well,
In a more expensive,
no strip club in this one.
well, in a much more expensive
Part of the country,
part
right?
of the country.
That's interesting, isn't it?
All right. So on the subject of due diligence, okay, we have been through this. Let's not hit these links. But for people, some people like to say, and they only prove when they say this to me, you don't provide any details. I mean, you just make these assumptions. There's no proof of what you're saying. Right. So there's no IRS return for the 1997. I mentioned that in 99, they only cite having 2 trustees in 99 in the link. We've provided in the past this excellent story, which gives you chapter and verse on the various settlements that and fines that were paid by the Clinton Foundation for 3 separate occasions of soliciting in the state of Mississippi without registering, 3 separate times. They're unrepentant. They haven't disclosed this in multiple states yet. One state they've been kicked out of West Virginia for failing to disclose this. They didn't disclose it in Utah, so they had to leave the state of Utah rather than continuing and explaining it. So if you look at this strictly the way, let's say, Mueller would be looking at Manafort, right, and applying the laws, this has been a disaster. It hasn't been an organization, didn't file its tax return, didn't have the number of trustees, didn't disclose this problem, didn't disclose in Pennsylvania a 2002 problem where they employed a fundraiser who hadn't registered properly in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and probably other states, but raised money anyway. They haven't disclosed an illegal agreement entered into by, it's an understanding, entered into by, in the name of the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation with a collection of Caribbean countries on the 22nd of August 2002, or Bill Clinton's illegal agreement with a private company where he and his family were, he was paid money and his family had massive expenses reimbursed for private jet travel and fancy hotel living and all that kind of stuff. None of that's disclosed in any of these Clinton Foundation filings, which would need to be disclosed. They haven't disclosed the full impact of the illegal agreement with Ireland, which we've talked about in a presentation in July of 2003. The illegal agreement with multiple vendors, including the crooked Ranbaxy company, this generic Indian company, that paid a $500 million fine in 2013. And days before, and here's what I'll let you pull up, days before this, below that, this is a press release 4 days before the opening of the Clinton Foundation.
Charles.
Huh?
Take it like, hey,
There he is.
hey, I don't know anything about any of that.
What a nice little boy. Right. But here they have, this is a press release 4 days before the opening of the Clinton Foundation, the acceptance of the Clinton Foundation donation by the National Archives. This is a press release that says, hey, what I've done is broken the law. I've gutted my charter. We're doing all these things in the name of the Clinton Foundation. This isn't even the real name of the Clinton Foundation. The William J. Clinton Foundation doesn't exist.
What is it supposed to be?
The William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. There is no such thing as the William J. on November 14th, 2004. But they put this press release, this isn't, fake news from Charles Ortel. This is fake news from the Clinton Foundation. Saying, oh, look at the stuff they've done. None of this in the charter.
It's a presidential library.
Exactly, with the extra E in there. This earned income tax credit program, not a thing. The International Peace Center.
What about Operation Hope We Don't Get Indicted?
Yeah, exactly. And what about this one? The International Peace Center in Enniskillen, not a thing. The fact that he's honorary co-chairman of the Club of Madrid, that's a club of former presidents, and he chairs this board of the Global Fairness Institute. That's
So
not
I
disclosed.
think we need to assign actual name. Like, this is the William J. Clinton International Where's My Peace Center.
That's right.
The Global Unfairness Initiative.
Right. the Clinton Democracy Fellowship Program. What could go wrong with that? And the Clinton School of Public Service.
This is the Clinton Democracy Obstruction Program.
And then
Clinton
even
School.
further down here, the HIV/AIDS initiative. This thing doesn't lawfully exist. You know, this is 4 days before they sign the agreement. What does this guy, the archivist, do? Does he have? He said, "All right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to hire lawyers who are not yet born to take a look at this."
You
right?
know,
And
Charles, I know you were asking somewhat hypothetically, and it is difficult for people watching to imagine how so many people could be complicit or fooled or whatever. But I mean, just looking at it in terms of my own experience, like when James Cameron or Steven Spielberg or somebody like that calls you up and says, "Hey, Jason, we want you to be the 3D guy for this or that movie," you're not looking at the script and saying, "Jim, this part sucks." You just kind of do whatever
well,
they
you
say.
would do that.
I mean, I have done things like that and been invited to leave. But in other words, most people are just like, "Oh, wow, I'm working for Bill Clinton. I mean, of course, it's got to be right. He's Bill Clinton."
Well, and that's all the more reason why these people should be aggressively prosecuted, because they preyed on the natural propensity to suspend your cynicism, to suspend that part of you that says, "Wait a minute, you know, I distrust everything else. You know what, I'm just going to give this guy a pass?" I mean, so this is so bold. This is such bold fraud, to defraud the National Archives, we the people, in this time frame. At a time, at this time, they had never had a real audit of their financial statements. Nobody had ever checked. No third party, truly independent third party, had ever checked to see what this thing was actually doing, whether it was consistent with its legal charter. And by the way, Mueller and Comey and Rosenstein had that crack team that you bring in when you don't want to get crimes to be discovered. They had been looking at this mess, not all of them, but the group had been looking at this
the
thing.
crack team was smoking crack.
Exactly, since about February of 2001. They didn't see anything. They didn't say, "Wait a minute, guys, you did all this stuff and you didn't check with the IRS? You never got audited? None of this shows up in any of your financial statements? What the hell?"
It's really quite absurd.
Keep going, though. There's even more.
But wait, there's more.
That's right. You get free shipping. You got the American India Foundation, another bold fraud.
Families Against Freedom
Yeah.
Scholarship Fund.
So
What? Oh, Bob Dole teamed up to raise money for Pepsi Cola?
now wait a minute. This is something that's interesting. How could the Clinton Foundation also be a partner with UNICEF to raise funds for the tsunami relief in a press release dated November 14th, 2004, when the tsunami occurred in December of 2004?
When's the date of this? Sunday, November 2004. And where was the tsunami in?
It was I remember it was like the 26th or 7th, 2004.
But where was it? Tsunami.
It was in
2004. Here's tsunami 2004, Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami. Let's take a look. This is saying October. Oh no, you're right. UTC on December 26th.
right.
So wait a minute. So yeah, did they add that after the fact?
Very suspicious, Jason. Very suspicious. Could that be another time phone hack?
Time phone hacking the Clinton press release. That's amazing. I don't know if Quinn watches every Sunday with Charles, but he does get a lot of mentions. If people want to learn more about time phone hacking, they should definitely tune in on patreon.com.
But so speaking though of monkeying with numbers, let's go back into the slide.
That's amazing, Charles. I mean, so where is the part here where it's talking about the tsunami?
There's also a partner with UNICEF
to raise funding for the tsunami relief. So they're
which occurred
definitely
after November 14th.
talking about this Indian Ocean tsunami that hit Bali, right? Or
Right.
Indonesia or something, in Thailand?
It had spread across. It was a gigantic 9.193 is huge.
One of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. I saw the movie about that family that was, anyway. Wow,
So-
that's really interesting. So back to the slide, huh?
Yes, sir. So if we go back down here, as I say, there's no audits in this time frame. There are no audits at all. No audits that remotely approach what you're supposed to do. But most importantly, there's no value when you make a donation of the right to use a portion of a building.
Yeah.
You have to come up with a valuation, and you can't just say, well, why don't I check
Right.
with the back of my accounting firm, to just pick a number out of air and put it down.
What's the accounting firm?
The back of my ass. you can't do that. You've got to go get a real.
That sounds like a good firm.
It could be. But you got to go get a real professionally trained, compliant group, not only of accountants, but of real estate experts and lawyers to look at this and say, all right, what legal rights is this foundation that was never lawfully organized or operated? Oh, wait a minute, it's not a foundation. So the National Archives has no right to accept a gift from a corporation, which is what this was, not in good standing. It was not on November 18th, 2004, in my view, a truly validly organized and operated foundation. And so NARA shouldn't have accepted it. And beyond that, to value it, what is the value of the right to use a building that is in violation of its agreement with the landlord, the city of Little Rock, that has put in jeopardy this bond offering issued by the city of Little Rock that required this thing always to be a validly organized foundation. That bond offering occurred in June of 1998.
Wait. So the city is offering bonds, meaning people of Little Rock buy bonds to do what? To pay for the building?
What the steps were that in June of 1998, when the Clinton Foundation had not filed its tax return for its first period, October 23rd to December 31st, 1997, the city of Little Rock got together, Stevens Inc. underwrote a bond offering to get the funds together to buy the land and pay for the fixing up of the site that became the land on which this thing was built. That bond offering had conditions. It had to comply with local City of Little Rock laws, and they couldn't raise this money and use it to create a massage parlor and a personal residence and a catering
movie theater.
A dinosaur movie theater for the corrupt Clinton family. That's not allowed, even in Arkansas.
But if I'm not mistaken, Charles, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but don't the Clintons they're saying like, hey, Little Rock, what are you going to do, foreclose on the Clinton Museum? F you.
Well,
right?
I think
they can't really close that down.
Well, I think like any fraud, big grand fraud, what the fraudsters try to do is get as many people as possible complicit in the fraud, and then they give them a choice. When they have the aha moment and they say, wait a minute, you're not supposed to do that, then somebody close to the Clintons say, yeah, you're right, but you've been doing this with us since 1998. So, I hope you've enjoyed the party. By the way, want to come to a steak dinner at our catered massage parlor this weekend?
Right.
And so
where we're going to take videos of you doing something illegal?
More videos of you doing so. So the point is they've been moving these people along, and the answer to the question is, actually the structure is built, the money is gone, the money's burned, and there is an important lesson that could be taught here, which is to appoint a conservator for the William J. Clinton Foundation, which is its technical legal name, and give that conservator enough money and enough firepower to sue everybody, to get all this money back, hold everybody accountable, and then tell the story of this bad fraud gone wrong, and have this be the National Museum of Fraud.
Yeah, make a new dinosaur movie.
So come to Little Rock,
Fraudosaurus,
if you want if you want to understand how fraud hurts, right? This is a case study, a global, and people will travel far and wide
Fraud Museum.
to the National Museum of Fraud.
Wow, Charles. Convert the Bill Clinton Presidential Library and Strip Club to the National Museum of Fraud. I love it. I love that idea. And this apartment at the top could be, I don't know what,
You could rent it out.
Exactly.
For weddings.
Wow. Oh my goodness, the National Museum of Fraud.
It could be
now,
the
it's interesting,
International.
Stevens Inc. has been mentioned quite extensively by Larry Nichols. And Larry Nichols is a bit of a controversial figure. People have varying opinions on Larry, but I enjoy having him on the show because irrespective of what anyone might think about him, he has a lot of experience dealing with the Clintons, dealing in Arkansas. He knows all these players, Stevens Inc. Stevens Inc., if I'm not mistaken, were the guys that were involved in that initial cattle futures thing with Hillary?
I don't know if they were, they may have been, but Stevens Inc. is a very large investment bank in Little Rock that does Republican projects and Democratic projects. It's very controversial in my mind.
I mean, isn't that almost a contradiction right there? Large investment bank in Little Rock?
Not necessarily. I mean, sometimes that happens, but it is, you know, it's been around for a long time. It certainly is a firm that you do not cross in Little Rock if you want to be involved in politics.
Or not dead.
Well, I don't know about that part of it, but you know, there's so powerful that if you are politically ambitious, you better be on the right side, given that they will support Republicans and Democrats. And so, but you know, the bigger picture here is that this isn't a close call by November 18th, 2004 as to whether the National Archives should have accepted this project as a gift. It's not remotely a close call. Its books and records are not in order, its legal papers are not in order, it's under FBI investigation still on this date, right? There's no way it should have been accepted. So why was it accepted? And where are the records on the deliberations that may have occurred, the intercessions that may have occurred? George W. had won re-election by November 18th, 2004. He attended the opening, as did H.W., as did Carter, as did other people. You know, what are the records? What are the considerations that entered into here? You know, was there a dirty deal done that, you know, Mueller, who was then head of the FBI, and others were aware of, that there were Republican indiscretions, you know, in all the WorldCom and Tyco and Enron and all these other scandals, there are Democratic indiscretions, you know, there's this mess, you know, for the good of the country, let's move. I mean, there's got to be some set of, this just didn't wander into this disaster. There have got to be books and records about this. The modern FBI, the patriots among them need to stand up and be counted. We need to understand who perverted, and that's a word I use advisedly, who perverted this process, why, how many people have suffered, and how do we expose the people who were involved and bring them to justice. If justice and the IRS will not prosecute this mess, then we know what we need to know about what should happen in this November 2018 election. We need thorough bleach bidding of the people in IRS and justice if they won't get off their asses and do what's right here.
That's right. You send them some tickets to the IMAX movie.
Yeah. So this is going to look overwhelming at first blush to people. Let's focus at the very bottom line, okay? When you look at a financial statement, when I look at a financial statement, the thing I start with is how much cash was moved in a given year. Did the cash balance, when all is said and done, with all these numbers flying around, did the cash balance go up or down? In this case, during 2004, the cash balance went down $3,400,832 in two separate cases. Now, let's go to the very top for a second. What happened here? What happened here is there are two sets of books that were created for the calendar year 2004. One was created on June 30th, 2005 by Crooked Notorious BAD, or BKD, and a second was created on 9 June 2006 by BKD. In the case of the first set, they created what's called a statement of activities, an income statement, and they created a statement of financial condition. And with those two statements, somebody like me or anybody else with accounting training or finance training can derive what's called a cash flow statement. Cash flow statement shows you the movement of cash during a year, and it must reconcile with these other two documents. For the first 4 years of the Clinton Foundation's quote audited life, 2001 to 2004, they omitted the use of a cash flow statement. It's a crucial check on what really was going on. I derived the one for 2004 in that column where it says original. And then the Clinton Foundation, the auditors and auditors of BKD, they created one from 2005.
Wow,
for
quite a
2004.
discrepancy there,
Okay,
Charles.
look, the marvel here to focus on is, here you have in the BKD version on 2004 done in 2006, they say net income is 10 million, you're killing me here,
I'm sorry.
10,092,808 higher. They say that cash flow from operating sources all in, they say the drain, the increase in contributions receivable, that's, in your parlance, if I go to you and I say, Jason, I want to hire you and pay you $10 million.
I'll take it.
Yeah, but you're going to take it in your income statement this year in 2018, but you're going to get the cash next year. You're getting a receivable from me, as opposed to getting hard cash today. I'm giving you a promise to pay you.
So why go to the bank and say, hey, Charles Ortel is going to pay me, give me a loan or something?
Well, the point is, it's you've taken the $10 million in as revenue. Now you got to take it out because it's receivable. It's not in your hand. Cash flow measures how much cash is in Jason Goodman's hand in a given year. So here they say my income is higher by 10 million, but my receivables are also higher by 9.9 million. So the net impact of these changes on my operations I actually have, in the revised version, 400,000 less in cash from operations. 438,839, the far right column, less, okay? But here they say, the original one, I say I spent 43.6 million on property, plant, and equipment in 2004. This new one says, no, you didn't, you only spent 15.1 million. Now that's a big change.
How did they get that?
They cooked the books.
They just decide that's the number.
They've cooked the books here. And remember, we have the strange death of Mr. English.
John Glasgow.
Glasgow, rather. England, Glasgow, whatever.
I get it. Scotland, England, it's close.
But so a discrepancy of this magnitude would have been noticed starting in 2006 by John Glasgow. He would have said, oh, wait a minute, you know, I charged you on the basis that we spent 43.6 million in 2004. Now you're saying you only spent 15.1 million.
Oh my
That's
God.
A big change.
Charles, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we've got someone here on Periscope who is saying that Bill Clinton didn't buy a full-size portrait of himself like Trump did, and they go on to say, nope, look it up. C Foundation is clean, Trump Foundation is dirty as hell. Maggie, you got some learning to do.
Yeah, whoever's saying that should just, you know.
A fool or a troll.
That's right.
Yes, peace out, Maggie. F.O.
Later. So here we have a $28 million discrepancy there, right?
Yeah.
And then, so the cash from investing, they're saying we spent 28.864,295 less than the original document. But then they also say that the original one that I derived says you borrowed 28.4 million. That's a source of cash, right? They're saying, no, we didn't. Even though all of the tax returns saying you did in 2004 borrow this money.
Wow.
And the net impact of all this, Jason and viewers, is that you get to exactly the same result, right? All these gigantic changes in the far right, they dollar out to zero.
Huh.
I will tell you as a financial guy, the likelihood of that actually happening is absurd. This shows intent to defraud, in my view. This is clearly
smoking gun
evidence that what they decided to do is they had a big problem in 2006 as they decided to put these books and records together. The IRS had looked at the idea that they could engage in this Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative, and they'd said, no, you can't, you're not allowed to do that. The IRS had shut them down for this and that, and Hillary was running for re-election as senator in 2006. If she was going to be president, she had to win. So they had to cook these books. They cooked these books, and they made it virtually impossible for normal people to study these books. Fortunately, I've got nothing better to do and interested in studying this stuff. I have the further details behind this for the accountants who are watching this. This is a summary. I'm going to show you a slightly smaller print at the very end. There are more details that shows, but the likelihood that you would make these kind of gigantic changes, up 10 million, down 10 million, up 28, down 20, and dollar out at exactly a zero.
It's virtually nil.
Is nil. These numbers are forced. They do not foot with the underlying facts. We know that the gross property additions, we know that they were overstated in 2004. We know they're understated in this adjustment done in 2006 for 2004. We know that they did indeed borrow 28.4 million in February of 2004, so that number is absolutely correct. On top of which, we also know that the work product for 2004 hides 36 million. Even these numbers are wrong because There's $36 million that was siphoned out of the books in 2004. We've been through that before.
Yeah.
Do you want to show them again or not?
Well, it's up to you, sure.
If we go quickly into this link here.
I just also wanted to let you know that our friends in Periscope are suggesting that this person with that information was in fact Chelsea Clinton. I wonder if she can take time out of her busy diarrhea schedule to troll our comments section on Periscope.
I hope she is. So if we look here, go to the next page.
Oops.
Keep going. Next. All right, stop here, please. Okay, this says, note here, 45,331,227 in grants, okay? And note here it says all of them are in cash, 45,331,227. The $36 million grant to the National Archives is non-cash, not cash.
Because it's in kind.
It's notional. It's like, you know, it's an agreement. It's not like you go to the bank and you say, send a wire to Jason Goodman for $36 million.
Yes.
You just entered into an agreement with Jason Goodman, and we agree that the value of what I'm giving up to you is worth $36 million.
For tax deduction purpose.
But you don't get any
actual money. You can write off $36 million against that.
Right. This is a fraud.
Yes.
To say that it's a fraud for several reasons, but the first reason is $36 million is actually non-cash. And note, the line says you can put cash here and you can put non-cash there. They should have put $36 million there and 9331227 here.
So let me stop you for a second. For Chelsea, diarrhea, Maggie, whatever, that right there alone, a $36 million fraud on a tax return, this is a 990 to the IRS, that's a crime.
It's a massive crime.
If nothing else were done other than that, that's a massive crime.
Right. A massive crime, and it's never been corrected. And, you know, if we're talking about, Chelsea, if that was you talking about the value of this $20,000 portrait, okay, you know, probably for a $20,000 portrait, you'd probably spend $20,000 to get, you know,
plane ticket.
No, I was going to say a used cover of a shitty comic book that nobody wants to watch. $36 million, on the other hand, there are not many paintings that you can find that are really worth today $36 million.
And didn't Trump immediately pay whatever fine?
Yeah.
So that's been resolved.
Well, technically, to give him a bit of a hard time, not in charity land. You can't, in charity land, it's not, you know, you make a mistake, you break the law, you then pay the money back. No, that's a diversion. Okay?
So what should happen?
Well, you know, there should be appropriate penalties. I mean, if you're going to
pay more or jail.
Well, the foundation in question is already being shut down. The Trump Foundation is already in the process of being shut down. So this thing long ago should have been shut down. The last thing you should be doing, Chelsea, is being out there at the Pleasure Palace.
Trolling Periscope.
In the middle of a birthday bash where you're raising money even now for this crooked Clinton Foundation, which bears your name. And by the way, why does it bear your name? You know, you were just the daughter of the president.
Well, undoubtedly, Charles,
Maybe.
Right now there's a long line at the Vodka Luge at Bill Clinton's birthday party here in Arkansas.
Right.
And Chelsea is, you know, collecting singles for lap dances in the upstairs later.
I doubt it. Let's, we've got a bit more to go over, and
Sorry.
I'm mindful of the time. If we go to the final page.
Yes.
Okay, let's not pull these links up because we're already 2 hours and 10 minutes
Love
into
links,
this.
Charles.
You like them?
No.
All right. Giuliani was quoted saying yesterday and again this morning that Mueller and his very conflicted team are clearly panicking. And I would agree with him on that.
I love that.
And let's hit the second link here, though.
Who's this guy?
This is a judge that has now said that, and this is, I believe, an Obama appointee, is saying that the documents that the agency used have to be now turned over. This is the judge saying this. Saying, wait a minute, circumstances have changed. I want to see these documents. We all should see the documents. And President Trump, please, you could declassify these things. I mean, not to be thinking about politics at all, but I believe you're going to be at a rally on Tuesday in West Virginia, in Charleston, West Virginia. You know, to have some of these documents declassified and maybe a few more people lose their security clearance might change the behavior of the crowd this coming Tuesday, which might be a very newsworthy and interesting thing to watch on Tuesday. But anyway, then this is an interview. Let's pull this up. This is the Fox Insider people. I won't share who these people are, but they're wonderful individuals. And this is the great Joe DeGenova, and I think his wife may have been on this broadcast, saying, you know, we got to remember that if Hillary had won, God forbid, if she had won, we would know nothing at all about all of this corruption in the Department of Justice, in the IRS, in the FBI. And think about how much more corrupt it would be.
Yeah. Well, because they'd be emboldened.
Of course, they got away with it.
The plan worked. Had it worked.
So, again, we don't need to pull this one up, but the great Tom Fitton and his crew, or his posse, are demanding that this Hillary investigation be, you know, note to Hillary, lose the brooch. It looks ridiculous.
Everything here looks ridiculous.
But the notion that Hillary Clinton's tawdry record, illegal, corrupt record, operating the State Department for the benefit of the Clinton family and the Clinton Foundation over private servers and unsecure devices, and that that these people let her off because they figured she's going to be president, and as a guess, we have all this incriminating evidence on her. Now we can get even more out of her once she becomes president because we have all this dirt on her. I mean, the notion that this is not going to be investigated it's causing Donald Trump to roll over on his side. You see this?
Oh, I missed it. We were not looking at that. But what kind of a dope wears sunglasses inside to read a BlackBerry, Charles?
I don't know. The list of reasons is very, very long. Now, this is an excellent Zero Hedge post there, very interesting. People like me who focus on the financial statements of companies when we try to decide if they're good or bad things to buy, we do focus on profit margins and cash flow margins. And it's quite significant to me that a large percentage of the improvement in earnings since 2010 is accounted for by a very small number of firms, principally operating in technology. And look at this profit margin for a second. It's a low profit margin. For every dollar of revenue, you're getting between 9 and 11 cents of profit. That's not that much. Down here was under the, long ago, it was probably every dollar you're making between 4 and 5 cents.
That's terrible.
Right. I mean, why would you go through the bother of operating a business to only, for every dollar of revenue, only get back 4 or 5 cents of profit?
Might as well take the day off.
Exactly. Well, think about this. Here in New York, what are sales taxes? They're almost 9%.
Yeah, 8.75%.
So for every dollar of revenue,
giving more to the government
twice
than
as
you're
much.
earning. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. So this is
seems unsustainable, even at 11%.
Yeah, it's low, and so if you take this is you know, sobering stuff.
Well, what does it mean for the average person?
What it means is that if the average business doesn't make that much money, so why go through the bother? That's why you see
everybody should just go on welfare.
Well, I don't know about that, or work for other people. But the risks when you have a business, you've had businesses. The owners of businesses, yeah, it's great to be an owner of a business, but
stressful.
It's stressful. You worry about losing sales. You worry about losing money. You worry about accidents. You worry about all kinds of problems. And if at the end of the day, for all your worries and all the hard work fending off competition, all you're going to get back here is 4 to 5 cents on the dollar of revenue.
Well, what's causing that?
Well, there's fierce competition around the world. Is part of it, but also regulations are very high, and government's very expensive.
Oop. Well, interesting. I don't know what we can do about that. So tech companies are still only making that 10 or 11%, and they're 60% of the growth. They're the same companies that are also now attempting to control what information people can or cannot see. So that's
and actually these figures are for large populations of companies, and the truth is that it's even worse than this. That the market share dominant big companies have much higher margins than that. So when you take them out, you take the Googles out, you take the I don't know about
Apple,
Facebook,
probably.
Apple, and people like that, Microsoft, take their profit margins out of the mix, and you'll see that overall profit margins are very, very low.
Love the Post.
Yeah, the Post is wonderful. I especially love page 6, which is never on page 6, the cartoons. But
Page 6 is the gossip, isn't it?
that's funny as hell
The whole paper.
because it
is
has the
funny.
cartoon on it. But here's CBS News, a pollster on CBS News who may not be employed there any longer, having said this, is now saying, wait a minute, these polls may not necessarily presage a blue wave. And I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the key issue in these polls is the assumption one makes about the percentage of the people in the group who are Republican, Democrat, and Independent. That's a key issue. And it used to be that you could do most of these polls are done by phone. It used to be that you could get a lot more information about the person on the other end of the phone because they were on the other end of a landline. And so you knew the address and you could do research. But now with cell phones, you don't necessarily know, even if the person, who the cell phone is registered to, if that's the real person that's answering your phone. You don't necessarily know that. So
someone buys it for their wife or a kid
friend
or whatever.
And so, or in the case of Hillary Clinton and others, I'm joking, has an alias phone, but Bill most likely would have one. But
Yeah.
so you can't be as sure as you might have been, and it was never that scientific polling in the first case. But moving on a little bit, I don't know what happened here, but this was a Miami Herald story. You were hitting, is it
Yeah,
missing?
I
It might be, I know what it is. It's missing the thing, yeah. There we go.
Boom.
Boom, way to go, Mr. High Tech. So we're going to circle back to the question of Haiti, because in all this, the people of Haiti have really suffered disproportionately at the hands of the Clintons. And here the Clintons are now locked back into this plan to do more monkey business down in the Caribbean. Before the Clinton Foundation might be allowed under conservatorship, and certainly not under the Clintons and the current trustees, before they would be allowed to do any more international work, if they ever will be allowed to do international work, they need to make a full accounting for what actually happened in Haiti, starting back in like 2003 or 4 when they began to operate down there. It is a monumental disgrace. I'm sure there are criminals in Haiti guilty of collaborating with the Clintons. It's not simply a U.S. is wrong, Haiti is right kind of calculation. But the Clintons in particular should be ashamed of themselves, especially Chelsea and Hillary.
Why especially Chelsea and Hillary?
Because they sit there, they allow Bill Clinton to take credit for all this stuff. Bill is refusing to do an accounting for what really happened down there after the 2010 hurricane, earthquake, whatever. Hillary was Secretary of State back then. Just want to introduce, this is a story that is by this researcher, Corey Lynn, and it's part 1 in a tale. It's very in-depth, it's worth reading carefully. It talks about a new set of initiatives on 10 Caribbean islands involving the Clinton Foundation and potentially drug trafficking and child trafficking. It needs careful additional research, but it certainly seems to me as if this lady, Corey Lynn, is connecting dots, important dots that really need to be contemplated, particularly by the Donald Trump administration, remembering that we have a Caribbean diaspora here in the United States. Many people in the instability down here live in the United States of America. Many people who will vote in 2018, 2020 care deeply about what may be going on in the Caribbean under the sway of the Clintons and Ira Magaziner and now Richard Branson and other people. And it sure looks to me as if not enough scrutiny is going on. The Clinton Climate Initiative, operating in many places down here, has never lawfully been organized any place on earth, never has produced valid, all-encompassing financial statements that we can check. And this is, as I say, it's an in-depth story by an independent researcher. The crowd needs to read it, share it, circulate it, and react to it.
Interesting. It's an impressive looking website.
And as President Obama used to say, the Taliban, as opposed to the Taliban, Now, after 17 years, they want to have direct talks with the U.S., and they claim they're going to operate a state that won't be a problem for the wider region. Now,
why would we believe them?
as I understand, the best analysis I've seen of the situation in Afghanistan is that there, broadly speaking, there's the nomadic rural group, which are, reject central authority, and then there's a merchant class in Kabul. And we got together with the merchant class, which is loathed by the nomadic group, and that in part is why we haven't been able to ever make sense of trying to help peace come to this troubled for centuries part of the world.
Are you sure it's not because they gave money to the Mujahideen to just F the whole place up?
But I mean, it really is, this is a case study. Before we start talking about building nations in other parts of the world, we need to own up to what truly happened here. There's been a lot of American and Allied lives lost, a lot of local lives lost. There have been a lot of people critically wounded, both physically and mentally by this experience. And this is a bad, very difficult period for many people around the world, and we need to learn our lessons. Now on the plus side, who knows what to believe here, but here's a report saying that exoplanets in the universe close by, relatively close by, may actually contain water, which would be amazing if true. There are many, many planets they found apparently larger than Earth. So I suppose that could be good news if we come close to blowing this planet up. Maybe there's hope for humanity.
Elon Musk is headed to jail sooner than Mars, I think, based on his insider trading tweet, right?
Yeah.
That seems not good for Mr. Musk. I kind of like Elon Musk for his bold entrepreneurial endeavors.
So,
is this it?
The last one. So this, I think, this proves that there are higher powers. Okay.
This woman's show got canceled.
Yeah.
She wasn't that funny. I mean, being offensive is fine if it's funny. Classless of Netflix to cancel us.
She's calling Netflix.
That's what I was going to say. That's pretty funny. This is a woman who was like joking about abortion and stuff, and then
she knows about classless. When she says it's classless, she knows, because she is the embodiment of classless.
She's got a very weird thing going on with her hair. Like, every time I've seen her, she's got some kind of wacky hair. Like, is this intentional, this hair?
Don't ask me. Don't ask me.
So she's upset that the show got canceled. But, okay. Yeah, parade. These people once threw a parade of abortion on the show.
It's really gross. So good for you, Netflix.
She's big on abortion, on joking about abortion.
She's horrible. Horrible human being. With that, my friend.
Well, I think we had some just in stuff that we want to take a quick look at, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, there was this tweet from
the
James
great
Woods, who I do enjoy. James Woods. He has made a number of good movies, although he doesn't seem to be making that many movies anymore. He's probably sort of an outcast at this point for all of his sort of right-leaning views, but he's talking about the Baphomet, of course.
Well, that's great. My friends at Sputnik are noting this as well.
Satanic temple erects Baphomet statue outside Arkansas Capitol grounds. Yeah, of course it's outrage. I mean, satanic worship.
You don't think the Trump administration or the Trump campaign conspired to do this, do you?
What do you mean?
In the same way that maybe Soros organized the, in theory, ultra-nationalist white group to be there. I'm just kidding, of course. I think they really believe this.
I just think they love Baphomet and they want to put that up there, but it's crazy, Charles. It's absolutely nuts.
But nice tweet, Mr. Woods. Nice tweet. Well done.
Good job there from James Woods. Well, Charles, there's another episode of Sunday with Charles. It's, I mean, that's the thing. People say, oh, the Clinton Foundation is clean. On any given episode, you could take just one of the things that you point out, and it is a huge financial crime that nothing has been done about.
Well, and, you know, I hope the reason is that the Trump administration sees this as an opportunity to drain as much of the swamp as possible. And so rather than just landing narrowly on the Clinton Foundation alone, I hope they've been studying the far-reaching contours of this global scandal. And I hope they've made a decision that they're not simply going to take the Clintons out and the trustees and donors out of the Clinton Foundation, but they're going to follow this trail wherever it leads. And if that's the case, recognizing that they've had to clean out, you know, the partisan holdovers of really the HW, Clinton, W, and Obama period, they had to clean all those people out. It makes sense to me that before going public with indictments that will touch a former president, an aspiring president, potty head,
Got to have it pretty locked up.
should have it locked up, especially if you want to go forward with the case. You want to have a 92% chance of winning.
Right.
You know, you got to make sure it's all good. But the evidence is there, and I would implore the FBI and the IRS and the people who may be working hard on this, follow the evidence, share the evidence, build a case, a cautionary case that tells the people of the United States, you better not ever try this again, and tells the people around the world that our charity sector is taken seriously by the government. When people abuse it for their personal self-enrichment and political gain, they will be ruined financially, and they will serve time.
Yeah. I love the idea of converting the Bill Clinton strip club and IMAX theater into a fraud museum. That would be great. If they do that, we absolutely have to go.
That'd be pretty fun. What you do is you charge admission. You know, you go and you say, "I'm going to charge you admission, $20." And you buy your ticket. You go to the front door, and they say,
You didn't pay.
"You didn't pay."
Yeah.
Go back.
It's an extra 20 for you.
For me.
Well, Charles, that was a great episode. Thank you very much. I think people really appreciate the information. So many people email me and, you know, go in the comments and say that they wait every week for this show. It's a fantastic amount of information that you've presented. Happy birthday, Mr. Ex-President. He doesn't know anything about that. I do also want to remind people that we are doing some new shows that are only on Patreon. And for our sponsors on Patreon, I'd like to thank you all very much. People can go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and they can sponsor the program there. I'm doing regular broadcasts with Quinn Michaels. We had an explosive episode yesterday looking into some of the details of what seemed to be leaked secrets related to World War II prior to it happening. Quinn's found this book, My Friend Mr. Leakey, which is a children's book written by this guy, JBS Haldane, who was a geneticist and a neurologist and a Marxist. And there was a book that came out in 2018 that identifies he was a spy for Stalin. So the book seems to contain encoded messages that Quinn goes through, and people can go there and see those videos and lots of new content that's coming out with Kevin Shipp, content that's coming out with David Hawkins, and a lot of great shows there on patreon.com. So thank you for joining me, Charles. I will be back tomorrow, and thanks to everyone for watching. Have a great Sunday. Take care.